Yep, all set.
All right, it's Tuesday, April 2nd, around 7:15 PM, and I'd like to open the business meeting for the Zoning Board of Appeals. The Board of Appeals will conduct this meeting according to rules laid out in Chapter 40A of the General Laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Robert's Rules of Order, and its own particular set of rules entitled Rules of Procedure, a copy of which is on file with the town clerk. Another copy is available from the administrative assistant at this meeting, and this meeting is being recorded for the purposes of tape minutes. The first order of business is finance and fiscal year 19 accounts. Patty, you want to
Yep.
walk us through that, please?
The first one is the warrant for the supplies from WB Mason. So I just, the bill is attached, it's 2 pages. There's one item on the second page. So I just need a motion, to pay the amount, out of the revolving account.
All right, do I hear a motion to pay the bill for WB Mason in the amount of $192.28 from revolving account 250557000 at 54200000? Thank you, Dave. Any second?
Second.
Thank you, Dave. Paul? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none, that motion carries.
The next is go down to the revolving account.
No other motions, right?
It's landscape, so. So, if you just look at the line where I balance with the town accountant, so the first 2 pages. And you can see the amount spent to date and what we took in, and the third page is the report, the Munis report from the town accountant. Just to show that my spreadsheet balances with her spreadsheet.
The revolving account's no problem, but you were mentioning something about the was it
Yeah.
postage account or something?
So the postage meter is, if you
Oh, that's
look
the
at the
second
next
one.
page,
What's that?
we have also 5 signatures. So the postage meter is at 166.6. We have to keep a $50 minimum, that leaves 116 left, and what we cut coming down the pike, that's gonna go pretty fast, and I didn't do a warrant for it, I just didn't have time, so I'll do that for next month.
How many butters did you say on the next one?
70.
We have what,
That's $35 alone in postage, right?
Well, it's certified for the owner, applicant, attorney,
So just the
And the
butters
rest.
is 35 plus another
yeah,
$25, so.
that'll be.
this can come out of revolving, I think, which it always used to, if you run over.
Postage is completely separate.
It is now, but
Yeah.
in the past, it used to come out of
Years ago.
revolving. Yeah, I mean, if you run out, we can figure out what to do, but you have.
Well, it comes out of the revolving account. So I do a slip that.
We just need to move it over.
It comes out of the revolving
Right.
account and goes into the postage
Right.
meter.
I think Paul's right, we can, so we have March.
Sorry. Yeah.
Sorry, April, the rest of April, May, and June.
Yeah, so,
So if by the next meeting you're running low, we can figure out how
yeah,
to do it.
but I can't go below the $50 minimum.
Right, okay.
So we'll be,
You should be okay
Next
till the
month
next
should be
meeting.
good. Okay, oh, minutes,
Minutes, yeah.
please, I need 2 separate motions on that because, Dave Kapnis was not present for Carlton Drive, West Street business meeting, and Sharon didn't vote on Carlton Drive. So it's just, I just put a little thing here for you, right under the agenda.
Oh,
So,
so we have business minutes from,
3/5/19.
no, three,
Mm-hmm.
is that right?
Yep.
5/19? Hang on a second, Paul. Just, 19. And hearing minutes, I'm just thinking, okay. Yeah, so do I hear a motion to approve the business meeting minutes from March 5th, 2019?
So moved.
Second?
Thanks, Dave. Dave Kapnis, you're gonna abstain. Any discussion on those? None?
I'm
Okay.
Sharon.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Abstention or two.
Was I
Well-
correct not to vote? Because I was determined not to vote. Or do you vote
For
even though you're not
business,
a voting
you could-
member?
No, business.
Were you there for business?
I was there
You were
for the
there.
Oh, yeah, you were
Yeah,
here.
she can vote.
Oh, yeah, you can vote. So you vote yes on
No,
that?
but the one, the hearing, right?
Oh, just for the business, for starters.
Oh,
You were
sorry.
here for business.
Yeah,
and
I was
then-
here for both,
And
but
then
I
I
wasn't.
I don't know if you were voting for,
I wasn't a voter
right,
on that
okay.
one, so you
Or
don't vote
Owen.
on it,
One
right?
abstention.
Yeah.
on the Carlton Drive. Oh, no, wait, yes, on 4 Carlton Drive, were you on that one? That was,
I was
Dave-
big
here.
structure?
She
I
was here, but Dave
I
voted.
voted, so I have
Okay.
to.
Yeah.
So I'm not supposed to vote, right?
Right.
If I'm designated as the
So I
non.
make- Did you make a motion on both, Paul?
No.
no.
Okay.
I need a motion to approve the hearing minutes for 4 Carlton Drive from March 5th, 2019.
So moved.
Hey, Dave, any second on that?
Second.
Thank you, Gina. Okay, any discussion on that? Okay, Dave's abstaining. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none. That motion carries as well, Patty. Okay.
Okay, we
Right.
got correspondence. Frazzled. Let me just write the time, Gina. Under correspondence, you have the building permit denial for 258, 250R Andover Street, golf course, Black Swan. The other two items are two zoning amendments from the planning board. These are notices of hearings. So the one about building height is just, and I should have put a copy in here, I just, so if you look at the bylaw under definitions, in 165.7, it says building height, but yet the building height isn't in there. It's under building. The definition for building says 35 feet. So they're just moving. That's what I believe they're doing. That's what, I was told from John.
Since Les is here, can I ask you a
That's right.
question?
Am I right?
If people aren't finding it, they're looking at building height, and not seeing the description, it's not a building, so they just put it in the right place.
Okay, but this doesn't address the grade, the average grade issue, that,
Well,
which is,
that's-
Natural grade, yeah.
that doesn't change, is that right?
No, it's still the same sentence, the average undisturbed degree of grade, that's still in there, right?
I'm just wondering, that,
Yeah.
that has been somewhat confusing over the years as well,
Mhm.
right?
Um,
Or, I don't believe that ever got corrected, did it? Or,
No, they
it's not that
fixed
it's
it a
wrong.
few years
but-
ago, they put in whichever is less. There's a clause, whichever is less.
Oh, right,
That-
okay.
That cured the problem.
All right.
Now you can fill to reduce your building height.
We had that issue on another.
Right, it was from existing grade, so if you filled up a lot, they go from the old grade to the peak.
Yeah, I got it. So when you excavate and then you backfill, the old grade kind of,
Right. Or if you just fill in a site.
yeah, I see, okay, good. Thank you.
And the other one has to do with medical marijuana, which we don't have anything to do with.
Name change, right?
Yeah. I'm not sure what this,
What's
I'm not
funny?
sure what it's about.
This one is.
And the next one is, this is a application distribution for marijuana beverage facility. This is 68-70 Tenney Street. Planning Department wants comments if you have them by Thursday, April 11th. I only got one copy. I'm still waiting for an electronic copy from John, which I still haven't gotten, so I couldn't send it to you. But I have one copy in the office if anybody wants to look at it. So I just kinda copied a couple of pages of, like, the first page of the site plan approval, and then a page that said construction of facility, manufacturing cannabis infused beverages.
They're not being sold there, though.
I don't think so. I have the whole thing downstairs if you
Fairly
want to.
confident it's just a
I
distribution.
think it's processing.
Yeah.
Probably. No, it's not like the guy on TV on the news this morning that's selling it out of his house. And there's an attached letter that goes with it. and the name of the company, Tink.
It's on Tenny?
Tink,
No, the location is.
Tenny.
Tenny Street,
Covavana.
68 dash 70 Tenny.
There's a plumbing supply company there now. Building
I
a
don't go
building
down
next
that
to
way
it.
anymore.
All right, is that it on correspondence?
That
Patty?
is it.
We have hearing-related correspondence, we'll save that for later.
That's, yeah, right. So that's
Nothing else?
all I have for business.
Do you have new applications or no? What's that?
No,
Okay.
anything that comes in now could, is
Yep.
65 days till June 4th, but I'm thinking West Street, West
Yeah.
Street might happen.
All right, is there anything else we need to discuss that would not be anticipated within 48 hours of the hearing? Anybody have anything we need to discuss? If not,
Bad
I'll
agenda.
entertain a motion to close the business meeting for April 2nd.
So moved.
Thanks, Gina. Second?
Second.
Dave, thank you. Any discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
And we will reconvene at 7:30 with the first hearing, and we'll be taking 65 Central Street first at 7:30, okay?
Come on up, Mark.
set. All right, so I'd like to open the hearing for 65 Central Street. My name is Jeff Moore. I'm the acting chair for tonight. Our chairman, Sean Dean, is unavailable this evening. And we have, Dave Kapnis, Gina Tebow, Paul Schillen, regular members, Sharon Freeman and Dave Twist are alternate members tonight. And we're joined by John Eichman, who's town council, and Patty Pitari, I think you guys have met, is our administrative assistant. So let's first start by reading the legal ad. Sharon, did you have that, or?
Yep.
Thanks.
Public hearing will be held on April 2nd, 2019 at 7:30 PM at the Georgetown Town Hall, third floor meeting room for an application filed by owner CNLV CNG TNMA. Right? That's what you, LLC.
Yeah, that's them. I know.
Sounds good to me.
Do it by letter, yeah. Michael Hansen, manager, 195 North Street, Suite 100, Teterboro, New Jersey, 017601, care of attorney Brian R. Falk of Merrick, O'Connell, 100 Front Street, Worcester, Mass. 01608-1477 for the property located at located at 5565 Central Street, Georgetown, Mass. 01833 in the CB district and identified on the assessor's map 10B lots 3 and 4. The applicant proposes to renovate the non-conforming building by converting the second floor from office space to 7 residential apartment units with no changes to the exterior footprint. The structure is non-conforming due to its lack of a 100-foot buffer zone as required by 165-8A4. There's a reference to footnote number 6. A finding must be obtained from the zoning board in granting a special permit, all pursuant to MLG Chapter 40A, Sections 6 and 9, and the Georgetown zoning bylaws, Chapter 165, Section 78A4, footnote number 6, 974-79, and 94. Oh, I have to read the file. Also found on the website, blah, blah, blah. ZBA file number 19-06.
Okay,
Done?
thank you.
Okay,
Appreciate
do
it.
you need it back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, welcome.
Thank you.
Maybe you guys could introduce yourselves and kind of explain the project that's before us, and
Sure.
and we'll go from there. Does that sound all right?
Ryan Falk from Irica O'Connell here on behalf of the applicant. I won't read that acronym again because you did it perfectly. With me is Mark Yanowitz from JD LaGrasse Associates, architects in Andover. So again, this is a Section 6 special permit. Section 6 finding is they're called, that we're seeking because the building at 5565 Central Street, pre-existing non-conforming with respect to this 100-foot residential district buffer zone. This is essentially an additional setback when a structure in the CB district or another commercial district abuts a residence district, an additional setback. And here, we abut residence A to our south and residence C to our west. And so, after the building was constructed in the early 80s, this required, I think almost next year, this new requirement was put into place. And so our building is pre-existing non-conforming, which means if we change uses, the law requires that we get a special permit from this board, Section 6 finding special permit, which is a little bit different than your traditional special permit where the bylaw has certain uses that are allowed by special permit. If we meet the criteria, you may grant the special permit with conditions. Here, your standard's a little bit different. You're finding that the pre-existing non-conforming structure with this new use is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing structure with its current set of uses. And so normally in those cases you're seeing a gravel operation that's looking to expand, or a laundromat that wants to switch to being a large commercial dry cleaner, or some other type of intensification of a pre-existing use. Here, again, we're going from one allowed use to another allowed use, but we're switching from commercial to residential. The property will still have a commercial component. Retail will remain on the first floor, but the second floor would convert from office to residential. And so, in some ways, you might view our change of use as making the non-conforming structure slightly less non-conforming, because our residential district buffer zone presumably is intended to protect residents in those abutting districts from a commercial use. We're making this a little bit less of a commercial use. We're gonna have residential apartments on the second floor. In terms of the detrimental impacts on the neighborhood, I think we would be no more detrimental, and if anything, less detrimental. The site is currently has sufficient parking. We're required with the new use to have 64 spaces. The site has 131 spaces. Your usual parking and traffic impacts associated with an office use, 9 to 5 type of operation, cars coming in and out, depending upon the users. We're now gonna convert to a more predictable, knowing residential use. We'll have 5 two-bedroom apartments, 2 one-bedroom apartments, plenty of parking for those units and those uses, and you'll see your normal residential parking impacts, people coming and going as they normally would, but not so much in terms of flow in and out during the business day. So I think to a degree, the parking will be a better situation for the retail uses that would remain. So again, it's a Section 6 special permit. The finding we would need is that you're finding that the structure with the new use is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the structure with its existing uses. And just one thing to add is that we need another special permit for this as well from the planning board, because this is a mixed use. You may recall the zoning was amended last year to allow mixed uses in this zoning district, and so that's what our use is. We will need a special permit from the planning board for the mixed use as well as site plan approval.
Right. Would you like to go through the proposed change to the building and how you intend? We have a lot of documentation here, we
Yep.
got a lot of plans, maybe for the benefit of those who
Do you
don't have
mind, Mark,
copies,
walking
you
through
can
that?
kind of
Thank you.
sort through what the plan is here.
I don't presently have the existing floor plan layout, but essentially the exterior of the building does, the footprint completely remains unchanged. We are altering a few of the exterior windows. We're putting, 2 gable roofs, small dormers over what's just a shed roof dormer. No change again to the footprint. So we're upgrading the second floor windows and changing the siding. As if you visited the property, there's some deferred maintenance, a lot of trim, some rock in wood, kind of corner boards and some of the transition. So we're replacing some of the trim elements and just kind of upgrading the exterior siding. And there's a lot of brick on the ground level, which remains and stays unchanged. So it's mainly just the siding areas and second floor windows get altered from the exterior viewpoint. We're upgrading some of the lighting, some of this will be reviewed in site plan review. On the opposite, we are, presently the septic system is kind of maxed out and has been added to, so we're adding a new septic field on the opposite side, close to the fire station. So there's some exterior change there off of the parking lot in the wooded area, an increased field, and that has, that septic design has been submitted and approved with the health department. And that kind of gives increased capacity to the building and improves a system that's old. In the floor plan, we show the configuration of the apartments. We have actually 3 stairwells in the building, as well as a rear elevator, which is kind of I think, a unique feature to Georgetown, giving nice accessible entrances to one-story apartments. So we have accessible entry through the rear, and again, three stairs that kind of remain in as good circulation for the space. And then your planned development again, is kind of working with existing corridor and just changing the use from commercial office to residential units.
Can I ask you if there's gonna be any accessible apartments?
There is, all of the apartments are considered Group 1 accessibility, which allows for adaptation to any of them could be. They have all the clearances and so forth.
Thank you.
So, you know, ideal for empty nesters and age-in-place conditions.
So most of the major work will be with the utilities? Okay.
Correct, and internal. As you may know, there was a small fire inside the building. The roof was undamaged, but some of the roof trusses were damaged, so there's some structural repair in this area. From there, we're essentially, it's a gut remodel. So, we are going, you know, it'll all be new kind of plumbing, mechanical systems, along with finishes throughout. And that's, you know, really it. We're dressing up the entrances for the residential, you know, probably putting some planters and so forth, and giving it a little more of a residential character as you enter the building.
And the square footage is not changing inside, or
Square foot is not changing
just
at all.
adding some dormers, or changing windows out, I guess, you know?
Yeah, it's just windows, really, there's no finished square footage, no bump outs, no bays,
Right,
to the footprint, so there's no foundation work.
okay. And, are you removing parking spaces as a result of the expanded septic, or is that
No,
north of, I couldn't quite tell looking at the plan, if that was partially in the parking lot, or if it was only gonna be underneath? but-
that was all on wooded landscape area, so there's no reduction in existing parking. And as Attorney Falk mentioned, we're well above the required parking spaces.
Yeah, it seems like that whole side is pretty empty most of the time. I know you guys may not be in this area that often, but generally there aren't a whole lot of cars occupying that large lot towards the. Are you gonna have allocated lots or parking spaces for the tenants, or are they gonna park in a particular area?
I think because there's such an abundance of parking spaces, it's not required. You know, due to, we're more defining some of the parking spaces in the back where the elevator is. And I was going to suggest, we're probably gonna put a couple handicap spots specifically in the back entrance for elevator access. But otherwise, there's no real need to designate specific parking spaces. You know, most of the traffic there is to the CVS, and people would want to park out front, and there's a good chance the residents would choose to park in the rear or to the
side.
opposite side of the CVS.
I'm just asking if it's gonna increase the flow around the side of the building. People park in the rear, they're gonna come out on the side. If they're gonna park over on the side, they're gonna kinda go in and out the front entrance, I would imagine. You know, I'm just curious if.
Yeah, I mean,
You know.
the reality is there's also a pass-through CVS.
Right.
So people from the CVS drive that
Through, yeah.
kind of alley on a daily basis. Again, with only 7 apartments, the amount of vehicle trips is really minimal in terms of what might further drive on that side.
The
Is
one
designated parking spaces
potential issue
site plan?
would be,
Yeah.
there is a fair amount of traffic at that CVS, so although, albeit 7 units, it almost seems as if there should be some kind of pattern for everyone to follow, but I'm not sure that's doable, given the size of the landscape on looking at the building on the left. Obviously, when you go through the drive-through, you come around that way, but that'll be handled at planning board, I'm
And then-
sure.
If I may, Mr. Chair, we met with Planning Board, I think it was a few weeks ago, because they were asked to comment on the application for
Yeah.
you. And that's one thing they had raised, sort of conceptually, let's see what you can do to make this have, you know, a residential feel. It's been a commercial property for, you know, 30-some-odd years. What can you do to make it have more of a residential feel? So I think some of these types of issues we would likely address through site plan approval as well.
Fine.
These are apartments, right, not condos.
Correct.
At this point, before we get too many more questions from the board, I'm gonna read in some correspondence that we got.
Exhibits and cars.
Is that?
Exhibits and cars.
Yeah.
Thank you.
First one is from Chief Fred Mitchell from the Georgetown Fire Department, Georgetown Zoning Board of Appeals, dated March 12, 2019. The Georgetown Fire Department support the proposed renovations to the existing structure and the addition of proposed residential units. The proposed building renovation must meet all existing Mass General Law 527 CMR fire protection system upgrades and NFPA fire codes pertaining to the property's proposed use. Also, the proposed residential units must meet all existing Mass General Law 527 CMR and NFPA fire codes. Finally, ensure that the fire department has adequate access to the property in case of an emergency response. Please feel free to contact me with any questions. Thank you. Regards, Chief Fred A. Mitchell, Georgetown Fire Department. We have some exhibits that were included with the application. There's 11 total sheets. I'd like to read them into the record for the hearing. Plans, exhibit number 1. Okay, so exhibit number 1, plan of land, last revised 1/7/19, stamped by Stephen Stepinski of Merrimack Engineering of Andover, Mass. Exhibits 2 through 10, drawn by J.D. LaGrasse and Associates of Andover, Mass. Exhibit 2 is a cover sheet plan, Mark G000, revised 1/30/2019. Exhibit 3 is sheet name code compliance G001 for the building inspector, revised on 1/22/19. Exhibit number 4, sheet sheet G005, second floor life safety plan for the building inspector. Exhibit number 5 is sheet A100, named site plan, also says proposed drainage and landscaping for planning. Exhibit 6 is sheet D100, which is a first floor demo for building department, which was revised on 1/22/19. Exhibit number 7 is sheet D101, which is second floor demo for building department, revised on 1/22/19. Exhibit 8 is sheet D200, exterior elevation demo for building department, revised on 1/22/2019. Exhibit 9 is sheet A101, proposed first floor plan, revised on 1/22/19. Exhibit 10, sheet A102, proposed second floor plan, revised 1/22/2019. And Exhibit 11, sheet A200, proposed elevations, revised 1/22/19. There aren't, there's nothing else that you was handed out tonight at the meeting that you want entered into the record, right?
No, you have everything that
Okay, sometimes we get
discussed.
additional.
And I didn't get any other correspondence.
That was it, right, Patty? Okay, I'd like to open it up to the audience at this point. If there's anybody in the audience that would like to have anything to say about this application, feel free to raise your hand. I'll recognize you, and you can stand up and state your name for the record. Is anyone here? No? Seeing none, I'll move on. If anything comes to mind as we move on here, feel free to get my attention, and I'll try to recognize you, so everybody has the opportunity to weigh in here. So are there any other questions from the board at this point?
I do think there should be designated parking. I know it's a site plan issue, but the entrances are in the front and on the side and only one in the back. And I think as someone who frequents CVS, you can always get a spot up front. I think if there's people living there, that's gonna diminish the accessibility to CVS for people that are going to the CVS. Just my opinion, 2 cents worth.
Agreed.
Or any of the retail down there, frankly.
Or any
If
of
you're
the
renting that
retail.
space down there for retail.
Right,
I
you
think
don't want
any of
someone
those tenants
just
would
parking
prefer
their
to
car
leave
all
those-
day.
Those whole,
They
that
would
front
prefer to
row
hold it.
should be commercial space only.
Thank you.
Well taken.
I agree.
Question, how many, is one egress in the rear?
Yes, one stair egress in the rear and that's where the elevator is. Then there's one on the side and one in the front,
And how many units would have access to those rear egresses?
all of them.
All of them? Okay. And have you made provisions to provide a sidewalk in the rear or anything like that? Because there's a possibility somebody could wanna apply to rent one of these and have kids in a two-bedroom. So, you know, lighting could be an issue.
Yeah,
Safety could be an issue. The trash pickups coming from around the rear too as well.
So we're gonna be reviewing some of that with site plan review. We are giving a little more residential character at the rear entrance, and showing, you know, more of a landing, having a bench, some planters, extra lighting, and so forth. We're also, again, designating some handicap spots there, screening some mechanical equipment. You know, there is, you know, it's a commercial building, so there's also the CVS loading dock is back there. There's only so much you can do. You know, with the new septic field is possibly gonna be like a little field that, like, if there were kids,
Oh, absolutely.
somebody, you know, it's like a little soccer field for somebody, or play frisbee, or, you know. So, there is, as you know, the plateau field in back, that's, is also, I see people picnic there and so forth, so, but, you know, it's mainly a big parking lot on all four sides of the building. It's a matter of getting to, you know, walking through the parking lot.
Right.
I think there's two, is it two, I think there was two handicapped in the back. Near
Yeah.
the elevator, near the door, near the.
Right, yeah,
two,
so we
'cause
have
I
two
was
of them.
back there.
Anything else from the board? I do have just a sort of a clarification for the board. I think this is kind of an interesting permit in that we're proposing a special permit for modification of a structure and a change in use, where you're actually gonna have to apply for another special permit for mixed use from the planning board. And they will have full authority to approve, deny, approve with conditions, what have you, for the use. So it's a little bit interesting situation, with sort of like a double jeopardy kind of deal. You know, so, I mean, for this board's, I've never been involved in a case where we would actually make a decision on a use, and then it goes to another board for basically,
Right.
as far as I can tell. And maybe you can explain a little further, or Les, I know, is here. I know we kind of deliberated over this a little bit offline.
For what it's worth, the
back
planning
when-
board feels the exact same way. When we were in a few weeks ago, we're concerned, you know, we have to go first, who goes first? But you have different standards of review. The planning board should a mixed use be allowed at this site? And they would, any mixed use in a commercial district, it's a special permit to the planning board, and they gotta go through the bylaws criteria. It's a different standard review, whereas yours is just, this structure, does the new proposed use make this structure more detrimental to the neighborhood than the prior use? Is your standard and your charge?
Which I was confused by, because the structure is inherently not changing. And I guess really the finding is the structure getting larger, is it getting closer? The nonconformity, which is the first finding we need to make, and is that it's within a 100-foot buffer zone based on the bylaw footnote. I forget what number it is, but
Number 6.
Number 6,
Yeah.
thank you. That's the nonconformity, and so does that nonconformity become more detrimental based on the proposed use? Really, that's it. And then, as far as any proposed detriment or benefit to the change in use to the neighborhood, you know, we're sort of, I think there's some overlap there regardless between us and planning, but it's just an interesting situation. That I've done this board a while, and I've never seen it before. So, that being the case, I just want a clarification for the board of what we're actually, the special permit that we're actually providing. And then, of course, you're gonna have to go to site plan approval actually as well with the planning board, so you're gonna be looking at two different applications to them, I guess,
Right.
or maybe it's one.
We're hoping, it was 2 applications, we're hoping to be heard as part of the same hearing.
Yeah, okay.
I think it's interesting that the planning board is going to determine how to make this project nicer, better, more functional for the downtown area. And the only thing I can think that might be a little bit of a sticky situation is if they do minimal changes to your plans, and they don't make it, sort of encourage you guys to use more outdoor space to make it better for children, for example. Without getting into the socioeconomics of who's going to be in these apartments, there's really no amenities for them other than the apartments themselves. So I'm not sure who's going to be attracted to renting these. I'm assuming they're not going to be a very high-end market, I would imagine, because there's, again, no amenities. There's no decks, there's no outdoor space, really, it's a parking lot. And I'm wondering who would be renting these units, and that might encourage a lot more activity after hours. When generally everything's closed, the neighbors next door might hear more people moving around. There's no playgrounds, there's none of that, but because these people have nowhere to go at 8 o'clock at night on a Sunday, they're going to be in the parking lot or somewhere making noise, possibly. Because I just, you know what I'm saying? I'm not exactly sure. I'm sure there will be an impact on the neighbors, and I don't know whether it's because it's more residential, it'll be more like their use, or because it's not totally, but it seems inappropriate to have apartments in this truly commercial setting. So I don't know how that's going to work. I know that it happens all the time in downtown Boston, but I'm not sure how it's going to work in downtown Georgetown. Certainly, it's going to happen around the corner on, more than likely, with the help of the planning board, on West Main. There'll be mixed use there. It's still a little bit different because there's a lot more outdoor space in that situation. So I just wanted to bring that up to the board, that I think it's possible there will be impacts on the neighbors, and I just wanted you guys to think about that.
Well, I guess we're moving to board discussion for the time being, unless you guys would like to respond to that a little bit, which is.
Yeah, I could respond to it. One, the idea to incorporate mixed use on this property was discussed and brought to the planning department over a year ago, and reviewed with the planning board, and got pretty much unanimous support for the notion of bringing mixed use to this zoning district, and kind of incorporating it with the zoning across the street. And part of the thought is there's a general urban planning concept, or you call it suburban planning, of new urbanism, or this idea that you don't necessarily need a vehicle to live and to go to businesses. So it is suited for, it could be suited for any generation. It's not just the empty nester, but obviously with an elevator and full access, it's an ideal for an empty nester location. And then somebody who has CVS, a drugstore below, or they could walk to a restaurant without having to get into a vehicle. It's a very attractive thing in planning, the planning community, to try to minimize the need to live with an automobile. So generationally, I hear what you're saying. You can't necessarily control, is this going to be the 20-something-year-old kids that want to party in the parking lot, after hours when the businesses are closed? I mean, we elected not to do, senior housing, strictly, because that limits, the rent. But it's a tricky thing. But there's definitely on a national level the concept of not creating suburban residential space that you have to have an automobile. And in this case, it is the downtown. I mean, it's Georgetown, but
Yeah, I agree. And as Jeff was mentioning, we it seems to be more likely now. We are crossing paths with the planning board more often than we used to, and we're leaving it to them to do the site plan review, and they're the ones that are going to sort of drive an agenda that will make this appropriate. So we're getting better at leaving it alone and saying, all right, we understand the use. Is it detrimental? Is it not? And we're going to count on the planning board to kind of take it to the next level. So
I would imagine, given the existing site layout, that at some point you may there may be some development of some green space or something like
Yeah.
that for the
Yeah.
residents. And
I
I mean, it's surrounded by pavement on all sides, and just for the benefit of
Yep.
the owner and the occupants, I can imagine something happening
I'm
where
sure
this
it
kinda gets
could,
redeveloped
sure.
a little bit. Perhaps over where the septic is going in, now you're gonna have a, I don't know. But I like the idea, and we're gonna move to board discussion here, I guess, and you guys are welcome to respond to anything that comes up. But, you know, I kinda like the idea of a gradual reduction of use from commercial to residential, where you have that line, and this is a kind of an example of it in the immediate downtown area. Anywhere downtown, you could kinda say this is, you know, the same thing. I like the idea of mixed use downtown for all the reasons that you just described, and we talked about it with another project, just last month. But particularly where you have a delineation of commercial and residential, we always tend to have the potential for issues. We've seen it throughout town, whether it's downtown or whether it's on the sort of the outskirts of town, where you have commercial, industrial use, and then somebody with 2-acre property or an acre property, and they're looking for privacy, and somebody's over there making noise. There's always this issue. So the idea of mixed use, where you sort of blend from one to the other, and this creates that sort of use between, you know, strictly commercial and you know, across the street, clearly it's all, you know, retail, you know, and now you've got pretty much pure residents from that point on. So I think it's a good mix. I think it's a good location for it, and I like the idea. I agree with Paul, you know, that it'll be interesting to see how people live there
Yeah.
on a daily
Yeah.
basis. But I don't think there's gonna be any detriment. I think, you know, if anything, it's gonna make things a little more vibrant down there, particularly, you know, when the businesses aren't open on, you know, on Sundays or whatever. There'll be a lot more people around, so. I don't know, does anybody else have any comments on that, or?
I mean, I agree with you. I think that's kind of necessary, where we have these pockets where we go from one delineation to the other. And I agree with Paul, it's gonna be interesting to see how these people coexist with the traffic that goes through for the pharmacy and, you know, store and whatnot. The one thing that I don't think I agree with so much is that these are very common, and you see them all the time. Something like this in Newburyport, where there's a much more vibrant downtown, where they have a public sewer system, is obviously works a lot better. But I do agree with Jeff that this is something that our town needs to start looking at to boost our downtown, because it certainly needs a little boost.
Well, to your
But
point,
it's
it's
a lot-
also not, oh, excuse me.
It's a lot harder in a town where we don't have a public sewer system running through the center of town. And that's usually where, you know, your restaurants and, you know, mixed-use properties are, so.
Yeah, I was gonna make the same point, that, you know, there aren't a lot of lots in the downtown area that could support this kind of use,
Right.
particularly for the septic reason. So this is one of them, and, you know, I think it's not a bad idea, so.
We definitely need rentals, I can tell you that much.
And it's probably desperately needed in town as well.
So am I correct that part of what we're deciding here is the change in use from completely residential to, commercial to residential? That's
Yeah,
our purview, right?
Yeah, because the building is a pre-existing non-conforming, you gotta
Okay.
make the finding that it is, which I think we have. And then, the change of the structure and the use from the current use to the proposed use is not substantially more detrimental than the existing.
So I have a
non-conforming use.
slightly different take on it, and I think it sort of blends into probably what's planning's purview, but the CVS window or whatever that is, that drive-through thing, the way that's currently structured, if you mix use it to make it partly residential and partly commercial, I think that the drive-through, the way it's positioned at whatever that traffic flow is, which I understand is planning, could be a detriment to the residential use change, because I think it's dangerous, the way the flow, so it's sort of blending both boards, but if we grant the use without changes or getting rid of that, I do have concerns about that type of detriment, which is sort of not your typical detriment. And then the other thing, which is probably also planning, is the motor vehicle egress is a little bit of a free-for-all now. And then if you mix if you change the use to partly residential, I think it will just, I never say the word properly, but exasperate,
Exasperate.
sorry, you know the word,
Yep.
right? But again, so I guess my concern is allowing the use to go part residential, which I think is our purview, really hinges on how those things are mitigated for the safety of the change in use to residential.
You're talking about the entrance from Central Street
Yes,
specifically?
currently.
There's no in and out, it's all.
Go in and
yeah.
out, it's
Yeah.
just,
And I mean, I don't know if like two, and this would probably be planning, if they could do a separate, this might be
Well,
Pandora's
we
box,
could have, we
but-
could specifically, and again, we did this on the previous, not to interrupt, we did this on the previous, application where there were some items that we really, they were probably gonna review anyway, but we kinda wanted to bring it to their attention that this was
Yeah.
a concern, and I think you'd probably agree that there's maybe probably some improvements that might need to be made there.
Sure.
We can put as a condition that, you know, they gotta go to site plan approval. That, we would ask that the planning
Her
board
point
review
is
that
valid.
specifically, you know,
That-
for.
Yeah, where that entrance is.
Street entrance is 2 cars on its best day. Really, there should be a right-hand turn only, so where there's a couple of parking spots there should be another lane going out that can turn right only. Because what happens is, if you're in your car, Jeff, in your truck, waiting to take a left towards downtown, and I'm in my car and I need to take a right, you have traffic coming in trying to get in between us, traffic going this way. So really, there should be a lane to turn right, and then a lane for.
Well,
people to
actually,
go.
it's, to me, it's the positioning of where the entrance is, it's in,
Needs to be
it's in,
wider.
well, to me, it's where it's placed, because it's in the heart of where the greatest activity is to go in and out, and in and out of the retail, and in and out of the building. So, for me, the use change is really critical for me, is addressing that drive-through window flow for the safety, that not being a detriment to the new resident, and with the egress of the motorist, because I think it really puts it right in the heart of the greatest activity for the greatest risk for now retail customers and residents.
Would you feel better if there was another egress located closer to the safety building?
Probably,
driveway
but I
over
feel
there.
like that also opens up Pandora's box, right? But I mean, if we could somehow
What'd you say?
put this into planning to consider as they review, that would
Yes,
make me feel
I'm
better about it.
99.9% sure they're gonna review it anyway.
I
Yeah,
agree.
they,
Did this come up? Let me just ask, did this come, you met with them,
briefly,
A
they.
few weeks
they-
ago.
They,
comments.
So we talked for comments, and they were all concerned. They knew they had a hearing coming up, and you know, didn't want to be viewed as part of giving you a report, prejudicing the hearing that was going to be coming up before them. But we did work through conceptually some things, and they generally raised, generally were supportive of the application, but raised, as we mentioned before, doing what we could to make a more of a residential feel to the building, which had previously been commercial. We didn't get into some of these types of issues. They raised some drainage issues, which we've been working on. We've had civil engineer out surveying and taking a look at that. One thing, and all those are fair points, especially with the entrance. We'll certainly work with planning on that. The only thing I'd add in terms of the traffic flow is, with this change, you're going from offices which will have people who aren't necessarily familiar coming in and out on a somewhat random basis, who might not be as familiar with the site, to residents who are coming in and out every day. So I would think the traffic flow would go down, but also the familiarity of the users of the site will be enhanced, because we're talking about this will be their driveway, their parking area for the residents. I'm not saying that means we don't do anything or don't consider these issues with the entrance, but I do think for traffic flow purposes, the site will get a little bit more predictable, because you'll have regular users who know what they're doing, not new people coming in who have never been to an office before.
I would challenge the conflict between customers and residences, because the customers may not be fully aware of the residences. I just think it's a pedestrian safety issue today. And you change it to residential mixed use, I feel strongly about it, and I challenge you on that.
well, I'm a little hesitant to put conditions that are purely part of site plan approval in, you know, in our
But
decision.
this is about the use, to me. This is about allowing a use change from purely commercial to partly residential, and therein is where I'm,
But the use, the detriment isn't worse tomorrow than it is today.
I disagree.
Okay.
I think the potential detriment is to the people who will be there, who live there, and the customers coming in, and I think it could be a dangerous situation, so I do think it's a detriment.
You know,
You
also,
wanna
we're,
propose a condition that,
I don't
Planning
know, I
board
mean,
review
I
it,
guess
or what do you wanna do?
I'm happy to kick it around, but.
yeah, it's really, we're talking about, how many people? 20?
Max.
Yeah.
That live there.
They could, yes, they could.
I'm talking about the conflict between the people
No,
who
I know,
live
I
there and the people
understand.
who shop
Uh,
there.
If there was, I think, I agree, I brought it up originally, that this is something that the planning board needs to address in a serious way, especially if they're serious about encouraging people to do this mixed-use thing in the first place. They obviously, planning board feels this is a good idea. So it's really up to them, well, it's up to you to vote on whether you think it is a good idea or not. But my other point is, there's only maybe, the impact on this overall project is gonna be pretty minimal, because there's only max 20 people getting involved in this to live here. It's not like there's gonna be 50 or 100. Yeah, it's not a huge project in that way. I'm just bringing that up is, you know, we're of course picturing, like a kindergarten class running around here, and I don't think it's gonna be that way. I don't think there's gonna be a whole bunch of kids or anything. I think in fact it's gonna be probably mostly commuters, because it just seems to be what, you know, that might wanna stay over the weekend and, stay home, walk to somewhere to eat, but, or retired people. So I think it's gonna be quieter, and that's gonna be better for this project. I think it's gonna tone it down, and I think how they address the physical, the look of the building, the facade, the garden spaces, or the growies that are gonna be around the building, and or walkways. And the other thing you might wanna do, which works really well, is change the pavement in some areas to like a concrete paver. That slows people down a lot, and it really lends to a residential feeling. So people, when they approach this, they're going to CVS, but they also understand that there are people living there. That helps, so.
excuse me. Well,
I'm,
who's voting?
I'm-
Anyway, excuse
I
me.
don't, I think, what do we determine, Patty? She can determine that,
I'm
but,
sorry?
I think we
Who's
determined
voting?
that Sharon was,
Sharon.
where Sharon
Yeah.
was voting,
so I guess,
Sorry.
Well, in case he
Oh.
wins.
No, no, it's
my,
fine. Excuse me.
So,
my comment would be, I'm comfortable, based on our last go-around with the other mixed-use proposal, recommending some, I don't wanna call them conditions, but things to focus on. And I agree with Sharon, it's definitely sidewalks around the perimeter, something to just alleviate the traffic through the middle of the parking lot on foot. Cause that's already gonna be enough with CVS.
the tricky entrance is the one on the side where the pickup window is.
Yeah,
If there was a way that, I don't know, I don't
Didn't-
even know what it is.
Didn't we, for settlers, for 51 West Main Street, the last mixed use we did, didn't we do, I just can't remember the decision word for word, but have the planning board please consider for site?
Yeah,
That
and
would
that's
be
what I'm,
fine.
that's what I'm suggesting, to the reasonable satisfaction of the planning board.
That's exactly.
Yeah.
You-
I don't think it's the
And-
entrance, I think
We
it's,
did it once,
it's the
so it
entrance
was
to the
okay.
building by the drive-through. She's concerned
that's
about.
good, that's good.
Oh, I thought you meant the main entrance
No,
onto Central
it's not the
Street.
main entrance.
I think it's both, but I think I feel more strongly about the drive window thing. But if we ask them to look at it, I would be okay with that. Specifically.
Address
guys can
the
draft.
side entrance.
Her concerns, maybe you can draft. But I would suggest whatever it is you want them to take a particular look at, which they would probably do anyway, but it's, I would think they would be fine with us just saying, hey, you know, and in the decision also,
It's up to you.
you know, we tend
think
to
so.
express, you know, when we get
Alright,
to
so
the
then
discussion
say,
piece, we add in some of the concerns that the board
applicant
had, may
to
not be part of the
review
conditions,
side
but we
entrance
discussed in
and
the
drive-through
decision that there were,
conflict with
you know,
pedestrians and
concerns raised about X,
Traffic,
Y,
that's fine.
Z.
Yeah, pedestrian
And
traffic.
that we felt that the planning board would address.
Right,
So they'll, and they'll read that
Sorry.
decision and they'll take it into
Thank you.
consideration with or without a condition.
I just wanted to make sure
I
I
got three
understood.
people
It's,
talking at
it's,
once.
I don't think it's worse
No,
later.
just
I
kidding,
think
of
it's,
course.
I think it's bad now.
We
I
all
don't think
have
it's
some.
worse later.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with that.
Well, thank you for. You know me and the pedestrians.
It is your sore spot.
It is a bit of a sore spot.
Alright, does this make sense? Applicant to review side entrance in conflict with pedestrians and CVS pickup window.
Sure. When you say side entrance, you mean
This one right
Side
here,
entrance to the building.
this is a, right,
That's what you're talking
so
about, right?
people could be
Side entrance
going
and
into the building
drive-through.
right here
Is that
to
what
go
you're asking?
upstairs. And here is the pickup window. So just this whole area gets a little,
this is the front of the building, right?
the
No.
front of the building's right here.
I think
Yep, so she's talking about
here.
also
And
vehicular
here.
circulation.
Yeah, but this isn't anything to do with the building. I totally disagree with you there. This is like asking them to fix something over at Crosby's.
It's an opportunity to
Well, they
fix a
can,
problem.
I know, but-
Well,
I think an entrance over here comes.
We're not
Yeah,
doing
but that's
curb cuts.
planning, but, so, I assume today they go
Sorry.
around,
I understand, I'm
right?
just saying,
Site
perfect
plan,
world.
that's site plan,
Yes.
like that's not.
That's,
I
I
hear
think
ya.
that's my greater concern. If you use the pickup window, I assume you go around the building.
that's
I've
correct.
So
never
I don't
used it.
understand, I thought your comment was people going in this door and the pickup window.
No, I'm concerned about making the use to residential. And
But
the
why?
fact that, well, because if you're a customer, you don't necessarily know the backside is residential, right? So it's sort of a through, it's
Are you
a
just talking
throughway.
about the traffic flow?
Well,
It's just
my point is really, once you make this mixed use with residential, you're introducing a conflict between residents, and especially when you have people, motorists driving through from the pickup window into the residence. So I think that's a
I can-
detriment to the people who will live there.
I can assure you that, planning is well aware of that situation. That exact conflict is the only
It has not
conflict.
been missed. There's no way.
No,
Well, it doesn't sound like they raised it to them. They were talking
No,
about
yeah, they did.
drainage,
They haven't got there
so,
yet.
no, they did, yeah.
so, but
They didn't
it's,
wanna comment before our
fine.
hearing.
They did, yeah, they
pardon
didn't.
me?
They didn't wanna go into it before our hearing.
They, if I may, they were concerned about getting too far into the weeds when they were gonna have an application and a hearing on
I
two
watched it.
applications coming within the next couple of weeks. They knew that you had asked for feedback, and they worked with us just conceptually on what our applications would look like and some of their initial concerns, but they did not get into this level of detail, not because they didn't indicate any interest in it, but because they didn't want to get too far along when we were gonna have an application pending with a hearing.
See, normally so when we get the application, I send it to all the boards for comment. But
I
these
know, but
last
the
two-
point is, they were
was-
being asked to change the use,
Right.
and that to me is where.
Well, I'm just
So-
saying why they didn't comment was because it's going to site plan, so that's why John didn't
Okay.
send me anything.
Well,
So
if-
is there
if-
something specific that what you would like to add as a condition?
would like to make sure that planning board takes a good look at the drive-through window and the traffic flow in so far as when we change the use to residential.
I agree with you. I agree, and I don't, and
So
I,
it's
don't know how
not,
to
it's
say
not
it.
the
Like
side
the
entrance.
definition of
I
site
think
plan
you can,
approval, so they're
trust
gonna- I mean-
planning to do that with their site plan review. They have to.
Yeah, they have to.
They have to. That's what site plan review
It's gonna be
is.
number one
Okay.
on their list.
I can make a suggestion. I
Sure,
kinda
that'd be
mentioned
good.
before. When we draft the hearing, the decision, we go through, we list the attendance, we go through and we describe the discussion that was made in the hearing. We can specifically, with your help, can put verbiage in the decision that specifically outlines the concerns that we have with everything
Okay.
that was just addressed, and it'll be in the decision
Okay.
for everyone to see. And when we make if we don't want to do a condition now, we can outline these concerns as
Okay.
part of the written decision. And then the planning board will absolutely review our decision once they get it.
Okay.
And those concerns will be front and center with them, I'm sure. And if that doesn't work, you could also show up at their, at their hearing if you wanted and express those concerns again. Or we can put a condition that's very general, but that says,
I feel like it has
their
to be a condition
satisfaction.
that's specific. So for example, on the other one, we said, we want you to address screening to protect that house.
Okay.
But we said, address the screening. We don't care what it is, just address it.
Okay.
So if there was something, saying address the traffic flow is something that they're gonna do automatically. That's where if there's something specific, we can
Yeah, I
definitely
would
put it in
narrow
there.
it in to say, I would like you to focus in and address the traffic flow around the drive-through in the back of the building, considering there'll now be pedestrian
Okay.
traffic.
That's fine.
So-
That would, I don't know how to articulate it, but that's the concern.
They're gonna do that anyway, but if it's in there, then they see it.
We just address the traffic at the side, on the
Correct.
side with the
Traffic
drive-through.
flow due to CVS pickup window behind the building.
Yeah.
It's on the side and
And go on
pickup
the
windows
back.
on the side, but you
Doing
go
the right
around the
thing.
back,
Right.
To,
side and back.
I
You
mean, we're
can't
not
peel to
changing
the right, there's a
use.
wall there.
course.
That's the retaining wall.
Correct.
I mean, I guess if our decision wasn't about use, I'd feel differently, but
do, to CVS. Let me see if this makes sense. Applicant to review traffic flow
To the reasonable satisfaction of the planning board.
no, side and back, traffic flow from side and back of building due to CVS pickup window.
sure, that works.
As part of site plan review, just gonna have them do it on their own, or as applicant to review.
I was just trying to get this part right.
Oh, okay, yeah, all right.
Traffic flow due to CVS pickup window?
Sure.
Okay. As part of site plan approval,
Thank you, Gina.
yes. Okay.
Does that make sense? Gina?
It does, thank you.
Anything
Is there
else?
is there anything else? All right, anybody wanna make a motion on this? We can move along. Gina, maybe? I see your pen is out.
I move that the board find that the existing structure of 55 to 65 Central Street is pre-existing, non-conforming due to its lack of a 100-foot buffer zone where it abuts a residential district. Do we wanna vote
Go
individually?
through
or-
all three of those maybe,
Okay.
and then.
I further move that the board find that the proposed renovation to the structure and proposed use at 55 to 65 Central Street would not be substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming use to the neighborhood. I further move that the board find that the proposed change in use meets the prerequisites of the Georgetown zoning bylaw, chapter 165 to 79, A and D, being A, the application is desirable to the public convenience or welfare, will not overload any public water or other municipal services so as to unduly subject any area to hazards affecting health, safety, or general welfare, will not impair the integrity or character of the district or adjoining districts, and will not cause an excess of that particular use which could be detrimental to the character of the neighborhood.
So those are the findings. We'll vote on the findings first and then a special permit having made the findings, so, is there any discussion on those? There's a second, first of all? Okay. Is there, any discussion on those?
No.
All right, Dave, you're not voting, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed, none? So those findings are approved.
Okay. Having made the appropriate findings, I move that the board grant a special permit to CNLV CNGTN MA LLC for the modification and renovation of the pre-existing non-conforming structure as presented with the following conditions. Applicant must apply to the planning board for site plan approval. It's to be built per the plan submitted, exhibits 1 through 11. Is that right?
Correct, yep.
And the applicant to review what?
Can you do built per plan submitted when they haven't gone to planning? What if they change? Well, they're not going outside the footprint. Like,
I don't know if
what
all
if
these
something,
apply.
I don't know if we can, you know, if you do built per plan submitted and planning ends up having to change something for traffic, like the back entrance or something,
Well, they already don't have the particular screening
but they're not going
and
outside
this,
the
and the
footprint.
things out back
Yeah.
anyway, so
Say,
it doesn't affect.
Structure to be
their-
built
their
per plan submitted. Excuse me, so make a
Sorry.
friendly amendment, maybe we can
Yeah.
start over, we can
I
scratch
just-
that and then start over
alright.
so that it's clear. Is that all right? Or
Yes.
just the condition, I mean, the second condition.
All right, so
Structure to be built.
condition number 2 is structure to be built per plans, submitted
Scratch,
exhibits.
let's
Oh.
scratch that, cause that, they don't all apply.
Okay.
Just leave it at that. Is that fair enough?
That's fair, thank you.
And then applicant to review the traffic flow due to the CVS pickup window as part of the site plan approval and make any necessary modifications.
Great, thank you.
Okay, any second on that?
Second.
Okay, Sharon, any discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none, so that special permit carries, all right?
Thank you very much.
All right, guys, good luck
Thank
with
you.
planning board.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Alrighty. Oh, wait, I'm sorry, I have to read the,
yeah.
That's what you're
You're
supposed to be
blurred.
doing.
hang on.
Doing your job.
Have that when it's
No, it's good.
I just want to advise you that the zoning board has 14 days to file a decision. Excuse me, guys. Paul? 14 days to file a decision, and any appeal of the decision shall be made pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 17, within 20 days after the date the notice of decision is filed with the town clerk. An applicant may file his decision before the 20 days, but does so at their own risk. Per Mass General Law 40A, Section 9, special permits granted shall lapse within a specified period of time, not more than 3 years, which shall not include such time required to pursue or await the determination of appeal referred to in Section 17, if a substantial use thereof or construction is not commenced, unless upon timely application the board finds good cause to extend such period. Okay? So that's the extension, lapse of permit discussion. So, with that, good luck to the planning board, and we should have a decision when, Patty?
As soon as possible.
Okay.
As soon as I can,
We'll have it to you.
when I find my desk.
Thank you.
Hopefully it gets submitted and probably signed by.
As soon as I get it, as soon as I get it signed, Brian, I'll let you know.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you for helping me.
Good night, thanks.
I just wanted to make sure I understood it.
I'm not really articulating it.
I figured while you were sitting in on it.
Can you pass this around to Patty, please?
You're, I'll take care of it.
Burn pile.
Right.
Precise.
Over in Tampa.
I love this, by the way. Jeff, do you open? Jeff,
This,
Ignore the top,
ignore this.
yeah, and then start where I've got that little line with the arrow. If
You
you
know
wanna
what?
give
It's
it back
come up
to me, I
a few
can show you better.
Yeah.
Jeff,
It should be only structure or structure?
I have one arm, sorry.
Jeff,
Talking way too fast.
Yeah.
Jeff,
Here, though.
you gonna open and then I'll,
Yes.
you need to open.
Yeah, no, I need to open. I need to close previous hearing. Yeah, well, we could.
Close the
Still
hearing.
open.
Jeff, can I make
Yeah,
a
it's
motion to
closed.
close that hearing,
We're all
please?
set.
Okay, we're good.
According to town council.
Okay. Town council says it's cool, then it's cool by me.
You voted.
Okay, exactly 1 hour on the nose. All set, Patty? All right, it's about it's about 8:31. On Tuesday, April 2nd, I'd like to open the hearing for 203 East Main Street. I've already read the rules of procedure, so we'll move right ahead. And Dave, you wanted to
I'm
make a
sorry.
comment before we get started?
Yeah,
What, Patty?
and that, well, are we opening the Old Mellow, open to continue first?
Yeah,
You
why
got
don't we
two
do that?
members.
Why don't we do that and you can
Okay.
stick around?
Yeah.
All right? So,
Does he has to
sorry, we're
recuse
opening
him-
the original hearing for,
Yes.
for,
So he would have to
203 East Main
recuse
Street.
himself.
Not right now.
No, but here's the letter.
Okay.
To read.
Read this into the record.
That's to go.
This is
No Gina on that
to
one.
the Georgetown Board of Appeals, dated March 4th, 2019, regarding 203 East Main Street. G Mello Disposal Corp. Dear board members, as you are aware, the applicant has filed a special permit application package with the Board of Appeals relative to a new transfer station location on Carlton Drive. Given this alternative, we do not wish to take up the hearing board's time discussing the pending East Main Street application, as that application may become moot. Therefore, the applicant requests a continuance of the pending 203 East Main Street hearing until the board's meeting of June 4th, 2019. In the event that there is an issue with the quorum of the board members able to act on the 203 East Main Street application due to the continuance, the applicant understands that the risk is borne by the applicant. Thank you for your consideration. Very truly yours, Nancy McKay. So I'd like to make a motion, or do I hear a motion to continue the pending 203 East Main Street hearing until June 4th, 2019?
So moved?
Thank you, Paul.
Second.
Seconded by Dave. Thank you very much. Gina's abstaining. It's the four of us, actually. You're not on this either. So, any discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, none. So the original hearing is postponed until, continued until June 4th. Thanks. Okay, now I'd like to open the, is it 203 East Main Street? Is that what we're calling this? Carlton Drive, right?
No, it's map 15.
Oh, map 15 lot, okay.
Lot 46, Carlton Drive.
I'd like to open the hearing for map 15 lot 46 for G Mello Disposal. And Dave has a comment before we get started.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to recuse myself as a recent conflict of interest has arisen, and I should
Excuse
abstain.
yourself. Sure, okay.
Leave.
Okay, okay. So Dave is recused, and
Thank you.
you'll have to leave the room for the rest of the remainder of the hearing. Thanks, Dave.
Yep.
Okay, why don't I introduce the members one more
Now you
time,
can spread
just for
out,
the
Sharon.
benefit of everybody
Yeah.
who may be just tuning in. I'm Chris Moore, I'll be the acting chair. Sean Dean is unavailable tonight. Sean is interested in this hearing, and he plans to review this tape and be involved in the voting down the road. So with that in mind, with a lot to discuss, we expect that this would be continued anyway. So, I told him I would sit in, and he plans to be involved in the hearing at a later date, just for your understanding. Dave Kapnis, Gina Tebow, Paul Schillen will be the regular, and myself will be the regular members on this hearing, along with Sean when he returns, and obviously Sharon is filling in as an alternate as may be necessary, okay? So with that, we need to read the legal ad. Want to do one more for me, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, then.
Actually, Sharon did the original.
Oh, she did.
Thanks.
Thanks.
A public hearing will be held on April 2nd, 2019 at 7:30 PM at the Georgetown Hall, third floor meeting room for applications filed by the applicant G Mello Disposal Corp., Jason Mello, 95 Tenny Street, Georgetown, Mass. 01833. Owner East West Mirror Realty LLC relative to the property located on Carlton Drive, Georgetown, Mass. Assessors map 15, lot 46 in the Commercial C District. The applicant requests a special permit for light industry use 165-8 and 9, or a special permit 165-9 for a use not specifically listed in the schedule of uses for a transfer station to be constructed and operated on the property. The applicant also requests a special permit for construction and operation of a transfer station in a water resource district, all pursuant to MGL Chapter 40A, Section 9, and the Georgetown zoning bylaws, Chapters 165, Sections 7, 8, 9, 11, 29, 38, and 74 to 79. Also found on the website for Massachusetts Newspaper Publishers Association's MNPA ZBA file number 19-07.
Thank you, Gina. Okay, welcome back.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be back.
So could you please introduce yourselves
will do
again for the
that.
record, and wanted to let us know what your what you guys are planning as a presentation.
Right here.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. My name is Nancy McCann. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, G. Mello Disposal Corp. With me tonight is Greg Mello, as well as Jason Mello, the project engineer, Scott Cameron, and the traffic engineer, Rebecca Brown from GPI. And we do have a lot to cover with you tonight. And this is the application package that has been submitted to you. We have special permit application for the use as well as special permit under the groundwater protection resource area. So, we're here to discuss with you the property on Carlton Drive. Unfortunately, it's not numbered, so we have to refer to it as Assessor's Map 15, Lot 46. And as you just voted, we have been before you during the course of the last year for the existing Mello Transfer Station at 203 East Main Street. That property has been operated by G. Mello Disposal Corp. For almost 40 years. And as one might expect, over the course of 40 years, DEP regulations have changed. And the current location at 203 East Main Street is being required by DEP to upgrade. Most of those upgradings involve enclosure of the existing facility and operations, much of which at the current location are outside. That whole process required us to go through plan sets and appear before you, and we've had a number of hearings with you regarding upgrading that existing facility. During the course of that hearing process, it became apparent that perhaps another location might be better suited, might be more desirable. And in fact, during the course of the hearing, we were asked on a number of occasions, have you considered another location? So, Jason considered other locations. I think the last time we appeared before you was almost maybe last June, I think, on that location. And since then, he has been looking at other locations in town. And Carlton Drive has come to the top of the list. He identified this as an appropriate location, did quite a bit of due diligence in looking at this site, and identified this as a site that would work extremely well for a new, modern, fully to code, compliant transfer station, as opposed to trying to retrofit the existing transfer station that's been in operation for so long. The property on Carlton Drive, it's 14.5 acres. It's located in the Commercial C zoning district. It's adjacent to Route 95. It's at the end of Carlton Drive, which is a commercial industrial subdivision roadway. And really has not been developed, although in 2004, a special permit was issued for the processing of stone and soil and fuel storage on this exact location. In 2005, an additional special permit was granted for the storage of toxic materials and light manufacturing on the Carlton Drive site, but they were never developed. But those were...
This board granted, it was a transport terminal.
Yep.
That's what it was.
In, again, 2004, 2005. So this site has been in the subject of and in receipt of special permits for intense commercial type of uses. Those were not developed, so we have, I'll call it a virgin site. It's an undeveloped site that we can now design so that it will be efficient and address the concerns that we heard with regard to the current location, lay it out the way it should be laid out, not trying to retrofit, but designing a building that will really work for the Mello's Transfer Station. They've been in the business for a long time, they understand it, and that's what you see before you as a plan that will work well for this site. So following that due diligence, plans were prepared. Jason has the property under agreement with the current owners, and we have now submitted to you the applications that you have before you. We are seeking a special permit for the use. I've given special permits in the alternative. The first is a special permit under 165, Section 9, because a transfer station is not a use that appears in the table of uses, so it is a use that this board could grant a special permit, finding that it's in keeping with uses generally permitted. Or in the alternative, and I'll discuss that with you in a moment, but in the alternative, you could find that in fact a transfer station is a light industrial use as it's defined under the zoning bylaw, and therefore you can grant a special permit for a light industrial use, that industrial use being the transfer station. And then, of course, we have the application for the operation of the transfer station in the Water Resource District. That is a use permitted in the Water Resource District by special permit. So that's the application package, packages that you have in front of you. What's a transfer station? I want to make sure everybody understands what a transfer station is, and perhaps more importantly, what a transfer station is not. A transfer station is a place where residential trash and recyclables, commonly referred to as municipal solid waste, MSW, you sometimes hear that term used, and commercial trash and construction materials are brought to the property. They are accepted, they're sorted, they're separated, they're processed, baled, loaded, and they're transported off-site. This is not a disposal site. It's not a landfill. Nothing that is brought onto the site and accepted at the transfer station remains at the transfer station. It is taken in and it's processed. And that processing is a separation, typically by hand separation. It's separation of metals, which might be able to be sold. It's separation of recyclable materials so that those materials can be taken to a recycling facility. It's separation of waste and trash, which is then taken to a landfill or other end disposal area. So this is not an end disposal site. This is truly a transfer station. We accept the material, we process it, and it is transported then off-site. Nothing that is brought into the site stays on the site. There is no burying of material here. There is no storage of material. It is taken in, it's sorted, it's transported to the end distribution or disposal facilities off-site. Everything that is brought into the site is taken off the site within 72 hours. There is not a storage of the waste that is brought onto the site, whether it's residential waste, whether it's recyclables, whether it's commercial construction materials. It's brought in, it's turned around, it's off-site within 72 hours. Typically 48, but we'll be conservative and we'll say 72. No hazardous materials are accepted. No liquid waste is accepted. No oils, no paints. This is simply household trash, commercial trash, and construction material that comes into the site. It comes in, it gets turned around, and it goes off-site. That's the transfer station. That's what we're proposing here. With a proper design, which we feel we have, it's a clean operation, it's a neat operation, it's efficient, and it's well run. So we've had the ability to design the site from the ground up. Again, rather than retrofitting, which allows us to create a neat and orderly operation on the site. The facility will, aside from meeting, of course, setback requirements under the zoning bylaw, it will meet all of the current requirements under DEP, which will mean everything is enclosed. And we'll describe that to you and show you on the plans, and that's a DEP mandate. There won't be any flying debris, because again, enclosure is important. And the enclosure controls odor, it controls noise, and it improves appearance. The design that you see has really optimized the site circulation, again, because we were able to design it from the ground up. So we were able to deal with some of the concerns that we have at the existing location regarding circulation and regarding traffic. The site circulation has been laid out here, as Scott will go over with you on the plan, to separate residential traffic from commercial traffic. That was a concern that we heard in the existing conditions. We are able to create and have created a residential drop-off area that's safe and it's efficient, and it's larger than the existing area that we have now, and it's laid out much more efficiently and in a more orderly manner. The commercial scales and the unloading area for commercial trucks, again, separated from the residential traffic, so you don't have the commingling of vehicles as you have in the existing facility, so that we have a safe and efficient loading and unloading of commercial vehicles, which will, again, take place in the building that's being proposed. So, before we get to the plans, I just want to go through, and it's provided in the application, some of the points of the operation. 5 employees on the shift when we are accepting materials in. The hours of operation: Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. However, materials will be accepted from 7:30 to 3. What's the difference in the time? That's when the separation is going on. That's when the processing is going on. After things have been accepted, there's cleanup that needs to be done to keep the site neat, and there's separation and processing that goes on in the hours when materials are not being accepted. Saturday, operating 7 to 4. Sunday, 7 to noon. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, accepting materials, 7:30 to 12. And again, this is all in the application. The building that's being proposed is 15,000 square feet. We have the residential drop-off area that's separate from the commercial scaling and loading and unloading. 500 tons per day capacity, which will certainly meet and exceed the current needs and will meet the needs going into the future, as well as goals of the Massachusetts Solid Waste Master Plan. All trucks leaving the site will be covered before they leave the building. And again, we'll go over that, and that'll make sense to you once you see the circulation pattern, but I think that's important to note that vehicles will be covered. In addition to the site plan, in addition to the special permit applications that you have before you, we will, of course, be going through a full site plan review. We did meet with the planning board at their last meeting, and I believe you have a letter indicating their comments. As you heard from the last applicant, there was some hesitation to get too deeply into the application at the planning board level before the site plan was filed with them, but there was discussion. What I took away from that conversation with the planning board was their desire to see that there is screening from Route 95. So as you're traveling down Route 95 and going through Georgetown, you don't see the transfer station right there. The layout that we have allows us that ability to provide, through the site plan process, a significant amount of buffering along 95. But you do have a letter that came in, I believe, late today,
4:30.
from
Passed it out.
the planning board on that. So in addition to the special permit application before you, we will have site plan approval. We will also have an order of conditions necessary from the Conservation Commission. We did meet with the conservation agent, but we have not filed a notice of intent yet, of course, on that. And we will need approval from Board of Health and, of course, DEP. We have submitted to you what we think is a very thorough and complete application. You have your application package. Part of this was a project narrative that was prepared by Maureen Cameron, the project engineer. You do have the building inspector's determination as part of this package. The site plan, you have building floor plans and building elevation plans. And you also have a traffic impact and assessment study that was done as part of the application. Mr. Chairman, what I think I would like to do, I will at the end summarize the special permit criteria, but I think it makes more sense to go through the plan,
Yep.
so that when I say we've met the requirements, you will have heard how we've met the requirements. So I think I'd like to turn it over to Scott
Sounds
to
good.
walk you through the plan.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
May I ask Ms. McCann a question?
Sure.
So I saw that when I got in, around 6, I saw that John sent you this letter at, 3 o'clock or so.
I did see
He
the
sent-
revised.
Okay, I wanna make sure you have the right
Yes.
letter, cause this goat is more involved, okay.
Yes.
I think once we go through a general overview of the project, we'll read these into the record at an
I think that
appropriate
makes
point,
sense.
and
It's
then,
there's a glare.
Sharon,
That's
is that an
better.
extra copy of the letter?
Mhm.
There's 2 copies here.
Thank you very much.
Jason.
It's a common issue with the
yeah.
standard
This
town hall
shiny
lighting system.
picture.
Yes, yeah. They're a lot crisper and cleaner to see when you don't have the glare. Good evening, thank you for having us tonight. My name is Scott Cameron. I'm the principal owner and civil engineer, professional civil engineer with Moore Cameron Group, 66 Elm Street in Danvers, Massachusetts. I'm very excited to be part of this team and opportunity to present to you tonight. I'm going to kind of back. I brought some additional exhibits in addition to the plans that you have. I'm going to go through those briefly, and then I'll walk you through the plans. And I'm going to start from. This is just kind of a zoomed out image of the region where the site is located. And I did this to call out. Here's your existing transfer station facility on East Main Street. You come down Tenny Street, True Lane, Carlton Drive, and then you get to Interstate 95. So the site we are talking about is here, abutting I-95. And then as another reference, it's Pillsbury Lane there. Zooming in, what I wanted to identify, just in the overall context of what's around the site, the picture always tells 1,000 words. The black and white plans are one thing, but what does it look like? This is a relatively recent overhead photo of the site, which you can see that. What I did is I did highlight in white kind of the limits of the pavement that you see in the plans, and in purple the location of the building. What I included on this plan, you can see the adjacent industrial user here at number 16 Carlton, and here at number 4. You can see the drive coming in with the cul-de-sac. You can see East Main Street here with your on-ramp to go southbound and your on-ramp to exit, the exit ramp off of 95. And you can see the surrounding context. Nearest residence to the property and to the location of the building is 1,000 feet away on Spalding Road, fronting there. These residences get close to within 200 feet of Interstate 95, and that's important. As I get through my presentation, I'm going to circle back and talk to you a little about the noise associated with this use. And then residents on this side, about 1,250 feet away. On the other side of a wooded wetland area, and relatively buffered and quite a distance away from the site. So it's in an industrial area, it's right on alongside Interstate 95. So we kind of have this sheltered spot for this use. Now I took the site plan, and I'll keep this up next to the site plans, just as a, this is on the aerial. It just helps you see in color a little bit better what the anticipated use is. So new plan sets, on the first sheet I did include a context plan, which I just covered with you on the aerial. It's showing the location of the nearest residences. I'm going to skip through that right to the existing conditions plan. At this phase of the development planning, where we're really looking at the use of the property at this level, we're not into site plan yet. We have not fully gone through a technical design of it. We have done quite a bit of work in vetting, in designing the site. And we started with an existing conditions plan. This was actually the plan that was approved in the 2004 special permit. It's on record at the Registry of Deeds. It was done by Grasser Design and Engineering. We did do a site walk, and we confirmed that really, aside from the stockpiling operations that have occurred out back here, just as part of that initial work that ramped up after it was approved in 2004 but then stopped, there really hasn't been much change. We had Mary Rimmer of Rimmer Environmental evaluate the wetland line that she had delineated back in 2004. Again, there hasn't been much change. So as you come in off of Carlton Drive to the site, you get into the cul-de-sac. There's an existing gravel access road that comes into the site. It's about 12 feet wide. It's grown in with brush pretty close to the edge. It is gated at the moment. As you come through, there's a wetland area to your left or to the west, and that drains under the gravel drive this way and off, and then you get into the main area of the site here, which is open. It's been cleared, and that was as part of the work that followed the 2004 approval. And then as you get back into this area, the clearing actually extends further back into this area, pretty close to the wetlands. But this entire rear portion of the property is mostly wetland. There's another wetland here, and there's another small wetland here, which is part of this off-site. So it's a very, it's a wet area, and the Conservation Commission, of course, would be reviewing the work. We don't anticipate doing any real work within the 100-foot buffer to these back wetlands. We're trying to keep everything outside of that. And in general, in fact, we're trying to keep everything outside the 100-foot buffer everywhere we can. So really where we're going to be looking and working with the Conservation Commission is reviewing, the access point which we selected over here as being optimal for a lot of reasons, both environmental and from planning and land use, and how the site is going to work, but also allowing us to do some restoration and mitigation in some of these areas that were disturbed, that we kind of restore back to a vegetated condition. I don't want to put the cart ahead of the horse. We'll be reviewing that with the Conservation Commission, hopefully in an upcoming application to them. You want to call it the Water Resource District boundary runs right through the lot here. So the front portion is out of it, and then the rear portion is in. And so from this point to about this point in the property, that's about the development footprint in the Water Resource District. This is that context plan. It's just the GIS map to kind of give you an indication. That's what I went over before. So as you get through the plan set, the first thing you're going to come through on sheet 3 is the site plan. I'm going to do most of my discussion to this because this is where we spent a lot of our time in planning out how we could fit a modern waste management transfer station on this property. We probably went through 4 or 5 different iterations of different layouts, configurations, trying to figure out how to make this as optimal as possible, not just from an operations standpoint, but also from a public safety and public interface point, because of course one of the important things here is that public drop-off component. So as you come down Carlton Drive, you're actually not going to go to the end of the cul-de-sac. What we decided on was that an access point from this side of the property was optimal because it brought us in this side. It allowed us to make better use of what is a longer, wider area of the property between the wetland buffer zones, where it kind of comes down and pinches in this area. And it also allows us to orientate the building so that the bays are facing towards the highway. And that's an important thing, as I will get to in a little bit. So what would happen on this edge, at least right now, we are thinking this would be restored to a wooded habitat. It would make this entire section contiguous, so we have this large buffer of wooded area along the interstate. So this is actually going to provide an environmental benefit, but also a screening benefit for anybody commuting on the highway to really buffer the site and screen it from the highway. As opposed to if we came in with the road here, we would have, and you can see how wide this swath is coming through, at least a 50-foot wide swath would be required once you're done with the commercial access driveway and then stormwater management on each side that we need to do. So we would have had to clear quite a bit of trees through here to get that in. And this area, adjacent to the existing industrial use, it's contiguous with it, made a lot more sense. This is a 30-foot driveway coming in. It's plenty wide for 2 tractor-trailer trucks to pass on each side, but also for a tractor-trailer to pass while maybe a residential user is coming in. And that there's no safety concerns about somebody feeling overwhelmed by that truck coming by. This would be a standard width for a commercial road for this use. As you come in, if you are doing the residential drop-off, you're going to encounter the first driveway here, which will be signed. You turn into the site. As you come in, there are angled parking spaces splayed out in this orientation. Where you pull in, they're oversized 10 by 20 spaces, so plenty deep, plenty wide, with a 5-foot wide sidewalk on the front and a 5-foot wide unloading zone on the back. So plenty of room to open doors, get stuff out, open your trunk, get stuff out of your trunk, and be able to fit between the cars so everybody's not on top of each other. Your backing is minimized, so it's not a situation where even you're trying to parallel park, where you have to pull in and maybe back up. You know, aside from what's directly behind your car, which there shouldn't be anybody because you're the one unloading, it's you pull in, you offload into the bins, you back out, and you circulate back out. As you're coming in, there will be a yard attendant house, and they will be collecting the fees on a per bag basis to pay for the disposal. Location of that will probably be closer to the parking spaces. I know I showed on the plan here, but we'll probably move this down in that area so they can both collect fees and also be able to monitor some of the disposal that's going on. There could be another yard attendant there helping to direct people. The way the bins will work is we've set this up to fit 6 disposal bins. This will be a combination of recycling and waste disposal. And if I could, I brought some examples of what those would look like. These are compactors. I can just send that to you and you can pass it around me. So again, as Attorney McCann pointed out in the initial presentation, everything enclosed. So when you're depositing your waste, they're going into compactors in a container that's compacted to make it efficient for shipping, so we're getting the most use out of that space that would be on a truck. As these are loaded up, if you can imagine, there would be a retaining wall here, so you're actually up higher, and the bins are down lower, so you're not worrying about stairs or access. It's all right at grade, so you can deposit right in. And this allows us, the way this is set up, if these do fill up during the day and they need to pull them out, pull them back in, it's set up so there's no mixing between the residents dropping off and trucks pulling these in and out. You pull one out, you back it back in, it's on a retaining wall, it's safe, it's separate, and it keeps the more commercial use on this side of the site. So once you're done, you take a left and you drive back out. You have about a 400-foot long length before you get to this drive, and then you have another 100 feet from here to here. In total, stacking between 25 to 35 cars, depending on the size of the cars coming in and how well they pack in here, plus another 10 spaces for parked cars. So close to 40 to 45 vehicles on site queuing capacity, which is more than at the other site. So a big thing on this is the efficiency. You can see we're organized, everybody's coming in, pulling in, out, striped, signed, people know what they're doing. The operation and the turnover, people be able to get in and out, should increase noticeably. So not only do you have more queue length, more capacity, people are getting in and out faster. So less time spending your Saturday hanging out at the transfer station. Let's get back to doing real stuff on weekends. Now, the commercial processing facility is a different setup. So as you come back in, same access point, you're gonna go past the residential drop-off and you're coming into the building area where the processing building is situated. This is gonna split into 2 lanes. You're gonna have your commercial truck traffic on the left. It's gonna bring people to a scale. This is the scale coming in, so you're weighed getting in. Right now, there's only one scale, so they have to alternate in and out. So you have a scale coming in. You pull around here and you back up. If it's a large truck, you're backing up straight into the building. There would be a yard attendant here to direct that person where in these bays are gonna back up. It can hold a total of 3 large tractor trailer trucks in each bay. They're big garage doors. So you can fit 3 full-size trucks in here. And then this is the unloading area and the sorting area. And then there would be a lower section. This is where the truck would be loaded to be taking the material out. So this is in, this is out. I'll show you a little bit more on that on the floor plan. Once you're done unloading, you come back out, hit the scale, exiting. 2-way circulation, 2 scales, much more efficient. The queuing length for the tractor trailer trucks, now a 75-foot truck, which wouldn't be every single one, but that's pretty much your largest size truck. Get 4 trucks here on the site in that queue. We also allocate an area here for additional storage of trucks. If for some reason they have more than that, they can stack them here, or they can stack them in this area here. With 6 in the building, the site can accommodate 16 to 20 75-foot long trucks. So a lot more storage capacity. We don't anticipate that happening, but you know, the capacity is there. This area would also be where any of the on-site equipment would be stored overnight. So there would be a parking lot sweeper, maybe a loader, maybe some additional containers would be stored up in this area. And there's additional area for employee parking if they need some spillover in that area too. So just an additional area.
Excuse me, I interrupt you for this second. There's another lane in there marked public drop-off as well. Can you explain?
So the public drop-off, this is for if you're coming in with, you got a piece of furniture, or maybe you're doing a small renovation in your house and it's in the back of a pickup truck. Smallest stuff that might not need to get weighed, that's just, you can come in and the yard attendant's gonna assess it, it's gonna be, you know, $15 to drop that off. You're just gonna come in that bypass lane and come in. So there is some mixing with that. This isn't all just commercial, but most of the commercial work will be during the weekdays, where this will be mostly focused on the weekends for the residential. So that's what that bypass lane is for.
Most people that would be not dropping off trash or bags would be probably tipping the scale, I would imagine.
Aside from the people that might come in with like one bulk item, a mattress or a chair.
Okay. And larger recycle items like steel and that kind of stuff.
Correct.
Now it's assessed by the item as well.
Correct.
Is there an area for like steel recycling, so all inside the
All
building?
inside.
It'll still be
Okay,
in the
got
building.
it.
Yep.
Sorry, I
Yeah,
didn't
and all
interrupt.
that's sorted out, and the steel is sent to one place, and the work on the furniture is sent up to one place, and the construction debris is sent to another place. That's all happening in this footprint. 15,000 square foot building, 150 feet by 100 feet. It's a pretty good sized building. And of course, the third lane here is your exit coming out. I included in your packet the stormwater plan, kind of some rough grading, utility plan. I'm gonna go through this briefly, mainly because we haven't gone through the full engineering. There's quite a bit of work to do to fully engineer this, going before the Planning Board, Conservation Commission, a lot to do on that. But what we know we can do, there would be a water main brought into the site to provide both your potable water and fire protection for the building. There will be a hydrant somewhere in this location as well, so there's plenty of fire protection, both inside the building from a dry sprinkler system and exterior for a hookup for the fire department. There's room for a septic system. Now I drew some boxes on here for a septic system. They look big. We're talking about the DEP minimum size for a septic system leaching field. This is a very low user of wastewater, which means it's a very low user of domestic water. Probably about a 200 square foot footprint for the septic system is what we're anticipating here, about the size of a parking space. So it's not a heavy user with regards to your wastewater. And that would be designed in full compliance with 310 CMR 15 Title V. Gas and electric would also come in through here. The mechanical room is on that portion of the building. Stormwater management. Stormwater Management Handbook, Mass DEP. Those are the standards we're designing to. So what we're anticipating for this project is a combination of probably some structural measures, but mostly some green, low-impact measures. A lot of that has to do with the topography of the site, which is very flat. It's a very flat property. There's only a few feet of grade change through this whole property, so we're going to be shaping some things and making this work better. Right now, the way we've designed this is there would be a small stormwater management area here to collect the runoff from the driveway coming in. That would overflow back out to the wetland system here. There'd be more stormwater management on this side of the site. So most of the yard waste will come down in this direction into this area. These are shallow, 2, maybe 3 foot deep stormwater retention systems. Not big ponds. They're going to be, softly graded, and they're intended to be easy to see, easy to maintain, easy to mow. So as opposed to trying to put stuff underground or bury it somewhere else where it can be out of sight, out of mind, we want this to be visible and accessible and easy to maintain. Another area here, again, shallow, flat, and then another area here, shallow, flat. Now what's interesting about this is I did look it up when we first started getting into it. Mass DEP does have a category, it's called land uses with higher potentials for pollutant loading. So what that is, it's basically a category of the Mass DEP Stormwater Management Handbook for sites that have a higher potential of causing a problem. This actually doesn't qualify. It doesn't even come close. We wouldn't be designing any greater standards than you would for any other commercial parking lot. The land use is a very low intensity use because of everything we're talking about. Everything's inside the building. It's in containers. It's closed. So aside from the trucks and traffic driving around and GMLO doing their daily cleanup, sweeping the parking lot with a sweeper if they need to, hand picking up trash, there's not really a high risk here. So the stormwater management system will be designed in accordance with the handbook, and really the only additional measures we're adding on are to make sure we're addressing water resource district requirements to make sure we're treating that runoff adequately and providing groundwater recharge. So nothing really more than we would normally do. I did include in the plan also some erosion control measures. The site would be fully surrounded by silt fencing. We will have temporary sediment forebays, there'll be a construction entrance. As we get further into the design of the project, getting into a construction phase operation and maintenance plan, we put together a plan that's double-sided, about that thick. It's going to be done in accordance with the EPA stormwater pollution prevention plan guidelines. I'm not going to get into the full acronym, but this is regulated from the federal level down on how we manage the construction site during that phase of the project. Measures such as dust control, dewatering, stabilizing the site, making sure you're not clearing too much at one time. All that's going to be worked out on this plan. So we did include that, some of our initial anticipated erosion control measures. I wanted to hit on quickly one last thing on the site, and that's with regards to the site layout, and I talked about noise a little bit. Hold up. Oh, this plan's probably better. So, as I indicated, we're really orienting the building towards Interstate 95. So, aside from the trucks that are coming to site, all the operations are happening on this side of the property. The backing in with the backing sirens, which are required by OSHA, and we'll tune them down, make sure they're at the DEP minimum level, or the OSHA minimum level, 97 decibels. But that's all on this side of the property. So they're either bouncing into the building and back out of the highway, or they're out in the yard, again, backing into the building this way. As mentioned, we're gonna be screening, and our anticipation is to put more vegetation along this area. In this area of the property as part of the Conservation Commission process, but that also doubles as screening for audio. And we also anticipate doing a screening on this side, but there's also existing vegetation along the highway there. So as far as any audio, this is gonna be significantly less impact, and actually I can see when this is done, there's actually more audio screening along Interstate 95 because the highway is gonna generate more noise than this site will. And typically, when you're more than 200 feet away, even a tractor trailer or a diesel engine, and you can, the Federal Highway Administration has a lot of information on this that we've studied, but where you get to a point about 200 feet away from a highway or to a truck, really the decibel levels have decreased to a point where they're not much different than what you're dealing with in a house, with maybe the TV going or music or even conversation. I'm talking right now, so it drops off considerably. This screen, the way we have this set up, as opposed to if we came in from this side of the site, this would be flipped the other way and everything is broadcast out that way. We want to keep everything contained. And then also, again, the mitigation, we anticipate this area in the back of the property, which has been cleared, which is already starting to grow back a little bit, but we anticipate bolstering that up with new vegetation and buffer zone restoration through the conservation. They'll provide more screening and more buffering going in this direction. But you can see that the dwellings here, I mean, there's a house 250 feet away from the highway here. The nearest house to this site is 500 feet away. We're 1,000 feet through the woods, through the wetland, which is protected, you know, based on the current wetlands bylaw. You know, that area will never be touched. Thank you for your time.
Do the floor plan and elevation of the building?
Yep. I was gonna say thank you for your time. I have a few more to go through.
Oh, good. I thought you were stopping, and I said, no, you haven't gotten to the pretty building.
Pulled the patty
Make them
and-
stop, make them stop, all
pulled
right.
the patty and interrupted.
You're my backup, Nancy. So this is a floor plan of the building. You received this in your set. I did add a few more vehicles to it so you can kind of get a context of what that looks like. So this is the footprint about your a large size box truck. This would be a typical garbage truck footprint here, and that's more of a residential, an SUV, you know, a large size SUV fit with the building. So, you know, this entire area here is where the sorting would be occurring. And then this is the truck loading well. So this would be set down about between 4 and 6 feet below the storage area. So that's, the trucks can be easily loaded on this side. And then they're covered and they exit. So this is coming in, that's going out. And this is the side facing the highway. Okay.
So you're backing your vehicle entirely into the building?
Yeah.
Which is, it took me a few go-rounds to get a handle on that, but you're, whether it's a truck, whether it's a car, tractor trailer, you're backing entirely into the building, unloading in the building, onto the, what they call the tipping floor, and then you leave after you've unloaded.
On with the truck loading area, are there multiple trucks in there for different materials that get loaded, or do you sort and then bring one truck in for?
That's right,
a
it's
particular type
sorted,
of material?
bring one truck in, you know, so when they have enough material to fill a truck, that's when it comes in and they take it off. Again, based on the current operations, we're looking at no more than 72 hours before that's brought off site. A key thing with this is getting that material in and out, and the facility is designed to the size to handle the capacity, make sure it can be sorted and loaded and brought off in a timely manner.
Just so that everybody understands, can you briefly touch on what gets sorted? Like how many different types of things get sorted here, you sort recycling? Not to you know, delay your presentation, but
No problem.
I think a lot of people don't really understand how this operation will work.
So you have your household waste, which would be municipal solid waste, or MSW, as Nancy said. So that's what you generate on a daily basis in your house, in your kitchen. That gets separated, it goes in a truck, that goes to the local incinerators. Then you have your
That would be trash, household trash.
yes, household trash.
Okay.
And that generally goes to the incinerators in Haverhill and North Andover. Then you have your construction debris, and a lot of the construction debris that comes in, there's a lot of, it's mixed with everything. So we try and get out as much clean wood as we can, because then the clean wood can be recycled. We try to get shingle out, and then there's generally a lot of metal mixed in. We try and get the metal out, metal gets sorted, that goes to a metal processor. The construction material goes to a construction demolition processing company. There's numerous ones between Maine and New Hampshire and the western part of the state. And then you have your bulk items, which those can go to the incinerator as well, being mattresses and furniture. Then you have your normal recyclables. For the most part, the household recyclables are gonna end up in the compactors in the residential drop-off site. But if we have a truck that comes in that's picking up recycling on the curb, it'll get dumped on one side of the building. When we have enough, that gets loaded into a tractor trailer, and that goes to a recycling processor in Charlestown.
Okay. So if you have like drywall, I see you get a lot of that, people renovate, you get loads of drywall.
Drywall.
Gets recycled separately, or is that part of?
That ends up as a mixed construction demolition debris that then goes to a processor that then they further separate it, where they have more capabilities of doing so than we do.
And trash collection, like your typical garbage truck that you'd see go through town picking up curbside trash, I'll call it, residential trash. Would
So
they
that
be
doesn't need-
participating in here? They would not come in here, is that correct?
They may. Right now, we don't, but they may, and that doesn't need to be sorted because it is just household trash. So that would be basically 2 to 3 trucks get dumped, they immediately go on a tractor trailer and they go.
Okay.
Our primary material right now is construction and bulky waste. And our residential is mainly the residents of Georgetown and some from Rowley that come in and just drop off their 1 or 2 bags per week.
Great. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I think it's important for people to understand how this works and what's going on in there while they're
Absolutely.
looking at the building and
Yeah,
all that.
I mean, thank you, I know I'm dragging on, I'm trying to keep you awake, and
Perfect.
I can move around some more, and, I'm almost done, I promise, and then we get to
Okay.
the last presenter. We did add some color these elevations, you have black and white prints, it's the same elevations, we just had a chance to further refine these and add some color. So, building height, we're talking about 32 feet. So, typical single-family home height, nothing extravagant. This would be an open space inside the building. Make sure there's plenty of vertical clearance for loaders and moving around in there. The bottom level will be concrete. This will be a reinforced wall. It's got to be durable. It's be able to take a beating because that's where all the operations are happening. So on the outside, same on the inside. Above that, a painted sheet metal type of construction, a top band of translucent paneling, specifically your lights, and then a white roof on top of the building. This is the back view here, facing out that way. So no windows, nothing down low. So all the noise, everything is mostly behind the concrete. This would be your side elevation. You can see the mechanical room that's on the north end of the building. This is your other side elevation on this side. So as you're in the residential drop-off area, you're seeing this end of the building. And then this would be the side facing I-95. So you can see your 50-foot wide, very large doors, 1, 2, 3 vehicles, 1, 2, 3 vehicles. This is your roll-up door for the exiting vehicle here. Be a man door and a man door. And we haven't worked out the grading here. This probably won't have a retaining wall on each side, just a retaining wall on this side. But again, you got that green facade, translucent paneling on the top, and then your roof line. On the front side of the building, again, the building is about 35 feet in the front. It's about a single-family home as far as the height. Okay. I'm done. You're done with me for now until you're ready for questions. Turn it over to Rebecca.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Rebecca Brown. I'm here from Greenman Peterson, and we're the traffic engineers for the project. So I'm just going to kind of walk you through. I know it's getting late in the evening, but I'm going to kind of walk you through the traffic impact study that we put together and what the results of that study generally were. So the study included 2 basic elements to it. One, looking at the traffic operations, how much traffic the site is actually going to generate, and what impact that's going to have on the surrounding area roadways. And then the other component of it looked at the safety of the study area intersections in terms of the travel speeds, the sight distances, and collision patterns. So the first part I'll kind of walk you through is, which you're probably the most interested in, I'm guessing, is how much traffic is this going to generate and what impact would that have. So the traffic study that we did, the study area is highlighted here on this graphic. So just to orient you quickly, this is I-95 here, Route 133 running across here. So the study area that we looked at was the intersection of Carlton Drive and Route 133. And then each of the ramps coming on and off of I-95 onto Route 133 as well. The study that we did looked at 3 different time periods. We looked at the weekday morning peak hour for commuters, which we actually extended a little bit. Typically you look at a 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Because this facility is operational at 6 a.m. We start at 6 a.m. We also looked at a weekday evening peak hour running from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. And then we also looked at the midday time period from about 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. When people are kind of out and about shopping and could be dropping off materials. We collected those traffic counts back in February, and we grew those up to an average month condition based on local count stations that are in the area. The one that we looked at was actually on I-95, just north of the 133 exit, which showed that traffic volumes are typically about 16.5% lower in February than in an average month condition. So we grew those traffic volumes up 16.5% to an average month condition. We also projected those traffic volumes out 7 years into the future to look at a future year condition of 2026, using a 1% per year growth rate, which was actually a pretty conservative growth rate. Traffic volumes in this area right now are growing at about 0.5% per year. So we used a growth rate that was double what the trend is showing in this area. There was also a development for Healthy Farms marijuana center that is looking to expand their operation. So we also considered the traffic that would be generated by that and added that traffic on as well. The next component was obviously to add the traffic that would be generated from our site as well. And one thing to note is that a lot of the traffic that would be generated by this site is currently going to the existing facility and would just move right down the road. But we did not apply any credits at all for the existing traffic. We assumed that all of the traffic that would be generated would be completely new to this area. So this graphic here kind of walks you through what is anticipated to be generated. And this is just a rough estimate of what is being generated by the existing facility here, just so you can see kind of in comparison how that would operate. I know there's a lot of concerns when people think that the existing facility has a capacity of 50 tons per day and the proposed is 500 tons per day, that we might be multiplying the traffic by 10 times. But that's not actually what's occurring, because the proposed facility has the ability to accommodate much larger vehicles that can hold a lot more tons of material. So the number of vehicles isn't actually increasing all that much in comparison to the tonnage. So this column here is just kind of showing you sort of the existing traffic, and this one here is sort of showing you the breakdown of the proposed traffic. And this is on trips per day, or vehicles per day that would be coming in and out of this facility. So on a weekday, we're estimating that approximately 345 vehicles will be coming in and out, so a total of 690 trips throughout the day. And on the weekend, we're estimating about 438 vehicles that would be coming in and out of the facility. On the weekend, most of that is all residential vehicles. You can see that approximately 400 of those are residential. And in comparison to the existing site, it's already generating about 350 trips on the average Saturday. So very little increase there in the number of trips on a Saturday. It's actually an increase of about 66 vehicles throughout the entire day. And then on a weekday, you can see that there's about 200 residents per day that are proposed. Existing is about 150, so again, it's about another 50 residents per day. But where you see the increase is really in these numbers up here, which is your roll-off containers, small commercial trucks, and packer trucks that would be coming in and out of the facility. So overall, it's an increase about 150 trips on a weekday that would be coming in and out of the facility. So we distributed this traffic to all of the study area intersections that I have shown here, based on existing travel patterns, where the proposed facility is right up the road from the existing facility. We looked at the existing travel patterns in the area and distributed the traffic similarly, which the majority of the traffic is heading on and off of the highway ramps, particularly for the truck traffic coming in and out of the facility. Once we had projected out the traffic volumes, we then ran a capacity and queuing analysis that showed us how much delay would be incurred at each of the study area intersections and what that queuing would look like at all of these study area intersections as well. What we found was that at the Carlton Drive intersection, for traffic coming out of Carlton Drive during that Saturday midday time period, when you'll have a lot of residential traffic coming in and out, that there was a level of service F coming out. However, the level of service F is really a measure of the amount of delay. It doesn't necessarily mean that the intersection is failing. It just means that that the delay that vehicles are experiencing is more than 50 seconds per vehicle. So what we were seeing was about 72 seconds per vehicle for traffic coming out of there. What we really use to judge if the intersection is failing or not is the volume to capacity ratio. And the volume to capacity ratio here is well below 1. 1 indicates that it's at capacity. So at this intersection, it was well below 1. It was showing that there was queues of only 6 vehicles coming out of Carlton Drive during that midday peak period on a Saturday. And during the other time periods, those queues were lower than the 6 vehicles. Now, one thing that the analysis doesn't actually take into account, though, is that Carlton Drive, as it approaches Route 133, is technically wide enough to accommodate 2 vehicles, although it's not striped. So we analyzed it as a 1-lane approach, but really it is wide enough to accommodate 2 lanes. So if somebody wanted to slip out around someone who's waiting to turn left so that they could go right, they could do that to get out as well. The other thing to note is that there is also a 10-foot wide shoulder on Route 133 as you're approaching Carlton Drive from the highway that vehicles can use to pull off and decelerate as they're approaching, which provides you an operational benefit because it allows traffic on Route 133 to keep moving, but it also provides you a safety benefit because then those vehicles can move over and slow down outside of the travel path of the higher speed vehicles as well. So for the majority of the other intersections, which were all at the ramps, the highest increase in delay that we saw as a result of the traffic from the project was 7 seconds per vehicle, and increases in queues of 2 vehicles at any of these study area intersections. And again, as I mentioned before, we did not assume any credit for the existing trips. So although this figure down here shows you that it's only an increase of about 150 trips per day on a weekday and 65 on a Saturday, the number that we applied was actually the 690 trips across a weekday. So you can kind of understand that we didn't apply any credit for those trips. So the other element of the study that I mentioned was looking at the safety of the study area intersections as well. So the first piece of that was looking at collision history at each of the intersections. All of the study area intersections experienced crash rates that were lower than the statewide and district-wide averages, generally indicating that there's not a safety pattern that's occurring at any of the intersections. The only one that was really notable was the northbound ramps. There was an average of 3.6 crashes per year at that location. Still had a crash rate well below statewide and district-wide averages. But the majority of those crashes were rear-end crashes, which are typical as you're coming off of ramps where there's yielding movements to oncoming traffic. And about half of those occurred during inclement weather conditions. So pretty common pattern to happen at a ramp intersection. All of the other ones had less than 2 crashes per year on average, so very low crash occurrence at all of the intersections. We also did a speed study on Route 133 as it approaches Carlton Drive, so just to the south of Carlton Drive, where people are still traveling pretty quickly in that area coming out of the highways. It's posted for 35 in that area, but what we found was that people are traveling at 85th percentile speeds of about 49 to 50 miles per hour. And an 85th percentile speed represents the speed that 85% of traffic is traveling at or below. So 85% of people are traveling at or below that 50 mile per hour speed. And the reason that that is important is because we also looked at the sight distances for vehicles that are coming out of Carlton Drive, looking in either direction to make sure that they can see along Route 133 to oncoming traffic, as well as for vehicles that are approaching Carlton Drive to make sure that they have adequate time to see a vehicle that's either turning out of Carlton Drive or slowing down to turn into Carlton Drive, and they can react and slow their speed or stop as necessary. So for those travel speeds that we actually measured, for a typical passenger vehicle, you would need 375 feet of sight distance. And for a truck, it's obviously longer than that. You need about 495 feet of sight distance because it takes trucks a little bit longer to accelerate and get through traffic. We did find that there was sight distances of well over 600 feet in both directions along Route 133, and much longer in this direction as you're looking south towards the highway.
Can I
so-
interrupt you for just one
Yeah,
second? Is that a
absolutely.
gap in traffic that's required, or a sight line that's required?
That's a
or both?
sight line that's
It's not the gap in
required.
traffic that's required to
Correct,
safely
correct. So
pull
you
out.
have to, you need to have the ability to see 595 feet down in this direction to be able to judge whether or not there's enough of a gap in traffic to.
It's not the gap you need at 50 miles an hour in order to safely pull out of the facility. I just want
No,
to make sure that
no,
this, okay.
yeah.
Because that never happens, by the way. 500-foot gap, that doesn't exist, so. I
Yeah,
wanna be
no,
clear.
probably not. Yeah, and what that's really intended is to ensure that you have enough time to exit and to speed up so that a vehicle that approaches you from behind doesn't have to slow to less than 70% of their original travel speed. So there was, as I mentioned, there was adequate sight lines in both directions. So overall, we found that there were not any safety concerns related to the operations out of the study area intersections. And overall, we found that the additional traffic from the site, with our conservative estimates of the traffic, wouldn't result in more than a 7-second increase in delay at any of the ramp intersections. And the Carlton Drive intersection wouldn't meet the capacity or queuing capacity of that intersection as well. So if there's specific questions.
I think what I'd like to
Do we
do,
wanna
you
pull
have
those
these.
again?
Can I give a sum up?
You can, while they're here, though, I would like to maybe get any specific questions out of the way that the board may have for either of your
Sure.
folks while they're here.
Yep.
And then we will give everybody in the audience an opportunity to speak as well. I don't know if it was gonna be tonight, it's starting to get a little bit late. But everyone who's here will certainly have the opportunity to address the board during the hearing, whether it's tonight or at a future date. I just wanna make sure they're clear on that. So if you wanna go ahead.
I just want to
and-
sum up,
Yep,
just
yep.
to get on the record, although it's in the application, now that you've heard the presentation, and I know we've presented a lot of information to you, tonight, we have requested the special permit for the use of the property either as a light industrial use, which is allowed by special permit, or as a use that is not permitted specifically in the zoning table, but that is consistent with other permitted uses. We've requested that special permit, and we've also requested the special permit relative to the use of an operation of the transfer station in the water resource district. I think we've indicated and provided to you the information that you need to find that the criteria for the issuance of these special permits is met. The requested use is essential and desirable as a public convenience and for the public welfare. A transfer station is a huge public benefit for this community to have, and you've had it for many, many years, and this is the time and opportunity to create a new transfer facility that's going to last well into the future, and that's going to meet current health, safety, efficiency regulations. So this transfer station does provide a needed service to the community and a convenience for the residences and businesses of the town and the area. The requested use, the transfer station will not overload public water, as we've indicated, very low public water user, or any other municipal service, so as to unduly subject any area to hazards affecting public health, safety, or general welfare. The requested use will not impair the integrity or character of the district or adjoining districts, and the requested use will not cause an excess of that particular use, which could be detrimental to the character of the neighborhood. This is a transfer station. The existing transfer station would close, and this would be the transfer station. So there certainly would not be an overload of this particular type of use. We have provided to you previously in the prior application, but I'll reiterate it here, the involvement that the applicant has in the community and the community benefits that G Mello Disposal provides. Various public services, many of them we've discussed previously, and at the next meeting, perhaps we'll get into that in more detail if you wish. But the benefits to the town, the donations that are made to the town, the providing of trash pickup for different organizations and for the town throughout the year, the providing of manpower that the applicant provides is really extensive, and a very good business for the town to have and to keep in the town. This layout and this development will provide a better experience, plain and simple, for people using the transfer facility. And it will be clean, it will be neat, and it will be efficient. And those are all the things that I think people are looking for in a transfer station. Everybody generates trash, every business generates trash, and this is the ability to take it in, have it transferred, have it processed, and taken off for final disposal. As I indicated, we did meet with the planning board, and you have a letter from the planning board. The fire department, I believe, also provided a favorable letter to you, and I think at this point we will stop our presentation and would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it. There's a lot of information here, and we appreciate having your experts come and go through in some detail. And we have some correspondence to read into the record. We will want to hear from audience members. I know there's some folks here. It's getting late, and I want to be sure that if there's any specific questions that the board may have relative to the folks that you have here with you, that maybe we have the opportunity to answer some of those questions tonight, if that makes sense. Because they may not be here next time. I don't know what the plan is, but obviously we're not going to get through all this tonight, so we're going to be continued for next time. So I do have a question. Just curious. There's some traffic numbers here as far as site generation, trips. The trip site generation, and there's seasonality in the traffic flow. That I saw in your presentation, and there's a monthly adjustment factor that gets applied. And if I read it correctly, there's a substantial increase in the summer months for general traffic flow. Is that correct? It looked like it was being reduced because of the way the numbers were presented. I'm looking at the table, the Mass DOT traffic volume table. That was part of your lengthy report. So here you get a sense for how traffic flow sort of changes seasonally or monthly throughout the year.
Yeah, so we've provided rates for all months of the year, but if you look at February, you'll see that one is 16.5%.
Right, and that's the month where you actually
And
did,
that's the
that
month
where you actually
that
took the data
were
for those
actually
2 days. Okay, so it's 16% less traffic in February as opposed to, is that the annual
Yes,
average or something like that? Is that
compared to the annual
okay.
average, yeah.
So my question is, and this is maybe more for Greg, as far as the traffic that you see coming to the site, it may make common sense that you might see seasonality as well, as far as traffic coming into and out of your site. Maybe construction season is heavier in the summer than it is in the winter.
Generally, the break of spring is the busiest, the first couple weeks of spring, when people start cleaning.
So April, May timeframe, something like
Right
that.
about now.
Yeah, okay. So what I'm wondering is if you look at these numbers that generate, you've generated the trips coming into and out of the site, has there been any seasonality adjusted to those as well?
Yeah, so
I
these
mean,
numbers
what
are
do those
really-
numbers reflect? An
Yeah.
annual average, you got the per day, so is that
These are really
during
reflecting
May?
like a peak day, that would happen, cause these are representing the maximum capacity that the site would be able to handle, to process the 500 tons that they might have on a peak day. So this is kinda showing the number of trucks that would typically come in and unload, to work up to that 500 tons per day.
So you've got the existing and you've got the new facility, you're comparing the two.
Correct.
So
Yep.
we're clear. And those both represent the maximum capacity of each site,
Yes.
regardless of what time of year it is, it doesn't matter, it
Right,
can't exceed
right.
50 tons a day.
Yep,
or
yeah, so
500
it's,
tons.
the existing site can handle about 50 tons per day, so this is representing a 50-ton per day, or 50-ton day, I should say.
All right.
For the existing facility, and then a 500-ton day for the proposed facility.
And it's those numbers that you then fold back into your analysis when you look at the impact on the site. So you're looking at the peak potential traffic that gets generated at the facility against the existing traffic flow, and then you project that out to the future.
Right,
So-
yeah, so we took a peak 500-ton day and added that onto an average month for, the adjacent street traffic for what's happening out on Route 133.
Okay, so when you're looking at backups and all that stuff, you're looking, I just wanted to make, it was unclear, you gotta have a day, I don't know what day you're talking about necessarily on that table, so that makes sense. Does anybody else have any specific traffic related or site plan related technical questions while these folks are here?
Oh,
Good.
not currently, no.
Come on, that'd be more than that.
I mean, well, we got the traffic study, not as soon as the application, so we've got.
Well, and it's
Yeah.
very general because they haven't done all the engineering, so I think on a general level, it makes, he did a good job explaining what their intentions were, I guess.
I'm trying to figure out if we ought to go to, audience participation. This time we have to extend.
We gotta read in new correspondence and.
Yeah, it doesn't
exhibits.
necessarily have to be done tonight, although I suppose it should be prior to audience participation, so why don't we do that? And I think we might have to
Cause
postpone
the
it.
last smell, we're backed up on 47
I
except.
think we should let the audience speak.
Hopefully we don't.
We should, but I think some of these correspondence are relevant, so we can also go
Only
past
two.
10 o'clock, yeah.
So you're gonna just stop the meeting after you read those? Instead, we came here, you won't let us speak first?
No, you will. This hearing's gonna be continued for another week, or excuse me, for another month.
We
It's a
came here
meeting.
tonight, but you'd rather read those.
I understand, but we have to get through the full presentation so that you guys understand what this project's all about before we make comments. And there was been some comments from the planning board that I think is relevant, and from the fire department. So let's read those in quickly and then we'll move to audience participation. We can go past 10 o'clock, so why don't we do that, okay? Dated April 2nd, 2019, addressed to Sean Dean, the chairman of the Zoning Board of Appeals. Dear Mr. Dean, at the Planning Board's March 13th, 2019 meeting relative to their Zoning Board of Appeals input review on the proposed Mellow Transfer Station at the terminus of Carlton Drive, the board would like for the ZBA to take into consideration that in the future the developer would have to submit a site plan review application. During this review, the board will evaluate this project relative to its traffic impact on the community, especially in regard to whether or not the major development review per section 165-80.2 of the zoning bylaws is required for this proposed use. Further, section 165-83 site plan approval of said bylaws review of this project will entail analysis of on-site development issues that will include noise, odor mitigation, vehicular ingress and egress driveways, interior traffic circulation, parking and loading capacities, hours of operation, landscaping, and exterior lighting, etc. In a general sense, resulting from the March 13th Planning Board meeting, the board favors the present development proposal, especially in regard to the proposed location being more isolated from abutting residents than the present transfer station location, and more appropriately located, i.e. closer to the I-95 corridor from which the majority of the truck traffic associated with the use derives. In addition to the above, it was discussed at the above cited Planning Board meeting and agreed to by the applicant that the approval and opening of the new Carlton Drive location that with the approval and opening of the new Carlton Drive location, that the present transfer station will close. If members of the ZBA have any questions or concerns regarding this input, please do not hesitate to contact me or any planning board members. Sincerely, John Cashel, town planner. So that was received today at 4:30. Letter dated March 12th, 2019 from Chief Fred Mitchell, Fire Department, the Zoning Board of Appeals. The Fire Department is in full support of the proposed transfer station project at Carlton Drive with the following provisions. First, the facility must meet all Mass DEP regulations for confinement, containment, and runoff of any hazardous waste materials. Also, any and all hazardous materials shall be properly stored. The proposed building must meet all existing Mass General Law 527 CMR fire protection systems and NFPA fire codes pertaining to their facility's use. The facility must have a municipally connected fire alarm system. Finally, ensure that the fire department has adequate access to the facility in case of an emergency response. Please feel free to contact me with any questions. Thank you. Regards, Chief Fred Mitchell, Georgetown Fire Department. I'm going to read exhibits into the record later, Patty. We can do that at any time. I wanted to get these opinions into the record before we move on. So at this point, I'll go ahead and let's open it up to the audience. It's almost 10 o'clock. I'd like to have a motion.
Make a motion to go beyond the 10
Yeah,
o'clock.
do I hear a
rule.
motion to move beyond 10 o'clock for this meeting?
So moved.
Thank you, Paul. Seconded?
Second.
Anybody? Jan, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
None. Okay, so I'd like to move to audience participation. If anybody in the audience would like to comment on this, please step forward, introduce yourself and your address, and please make any comments to the board, not to the applicant, and we'll go
Thank
from
you.
there. So please introduce yourself.
My name's Christian Christensen. I live at 1 Katy Lane, sometimes also known as on East Main Street, depending on which part of the Georgetown government you talk to. I personally think this is detrimental. I live very close to the proposed station. I am an abutter, and in listening to the presentations and having read all the proposals, looked at all the plans, I came up with a variety of concerns both before the construction and during the construction and afterwards. There are the noise problems. I live roughly 4/10 of a mile from this proposed facility, at least that's where my house is. I can clearly hear traffic on 95 on a summer night. I can hear them. I can hear the Japanese bikes racing. I can hear the air brakes on the tractor trailers. I can clearly hear the noise from the Cambridge Port facility. I heard the noise clearly from the dumpster construction company that recently left that facility. So I will hear that. I can clearly hear the beeping from any construction equipment for hundreds of feet around, because my house sits on top of a hill, and I get all the fumes, the dust, the noise. It's very apparent to me, and it comes right in my windows. So that's a huge problem. One of the things that I heard is I didn't hear how long this construction is going to take, how disruptive it's going to be. I didn't hear a lot about what they're going to do in order to suppress noise, dirt, traffic, because this is not just an issue of when it's in operation, but it's an issue of when it's under construction as well. The amount of heavy equipment that'll have to be moved into that area, the amount of noise and construction and dust for that is an issue. The other thing that was a concern is that the area that they intend to build on got a permit in April 6th of 2005, file 04-008, and it's a special permit to store toxic or hazardous materials and to generate toxic or hazardous waste materials in quantities greater than associated with normal household use in the water resource district is granted. This I don't think was brought up. I have the document, it is part of the filing. So I'm very concerned that if there is toxic waste in the material, there are piles of old construction material in that area. You can actually see them if you use Google Earth. It's clear that there was some sort of activity there. I don't know if the ground is contaminated. I don't know if there's piles of abandoned construction material are contaminated, but I didn't hear any of that. So if that ground is contaminated, if it's stirred up, if dust is created during, the surrounding communities contain families that contain small children. There are known issues with cancer rates for airborne toxins. So that's a major issue. After it's completed, obviously noise, traffic, vermin, the seagulls, the rats, the various animals they attract, that is an issue. The hours of operation seem to be expanded, so I'll be able to wake up to the sound of heavy equipment going in and out of the facility, and I'll be able to almost go to sleep with that. Not so bad in the winter. It's going to be horrible in the summer with all the windows open. The fire plan, there has been several fires at the existing facility. I'm not in a position to judge, but to have a fire in a facility that's that much larger than the existing facility, that's relatively isolated from the fire department, and and to have the effluent from a fire to go into the wetlands, that's a concern. And with that, I say thank you.
Okay, great, thank you for your comments.
Do you want me to respond?
Yeah,
to
why don't you,
any of
there's
those?
a special permit issue in there that we can respond to, or you can if you like. There's several issues in there, maybe you can
Okay,
respond.
sure. The questions and concerns about construction, noise and dust during construction, and hours of construction and all of that typically are discussed during the site plan approval process, and conditions are put on with regard to that and how long the construction might take once construction has begun. So those types of issues will be addressed at the site plan approval process with the planning board. The concern I did mention in my presentation, the 2005 special permit that was issued, and that was not exercised. There was not any construction associated with the 2005 special permit. There wasn't an occupancy permit. But with regard to the specific questions, yes, there have been piles of fill on the site, and part of the Mellows due diligence prior to entering into a purchase and sale agreement was to have those piles tested to make sure that there isn't any sort of toxic material or anything like that. There was simply fill that they were brought into the site when perhaps construction that never occurred was discussed, and obviously environmental concerns have been addressed and have been reviewed.
So that was deemed to be negative as far as.
Correct. Yes. Other issues I think were basically part of the presentation and would be part of site plan approval as well. Board of Health certainly gets involved with health issues with regard to vermin and things like that, although you do have an operation and maintenance manual that was part of your package. But the design, the enclosure of the entire facility and operation really limits odor, noise, potential for vermin and seagulls and things like that, because everything is inside.
Mm-hmm.
Add to that, everything is taken off-site within 72 hours, so you don't have waste sitting on this site for long periods of time. That's where you get the odors. That doesn't happen here.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. And if you have time, I would like to ask about some of the building design relative to the fire concerns that the chief also, you didn't have a concern, but he said you have to meet certain things. So I'd
Which
like to
we do, for
comment
sure.
on that. I'm sure you do, but I would,
Yep.
we can get to that a bit later.
Yeah.
And you have some other concerns in there, and we're gonna take them, excuse me, I'm looking through you, sorry, and we'll get to them as well.
One last comment. The traffic plan did look at a variety of things, and the mathematics seemed to be good. They didn't address the traffic on Carlton. Carlton is a relatively narrow road. Cambridgeport, Cambridgeport, the company, now has a large number of tractor trailers going in and out of that. The fact that they actually have to park on the lawn because they don't have a good process for handling their loads. They have tractor trailer traffic that's going in and out. It may not have been accounted for because they weren't really in operation in February. The other thing is there's a grow facility going in. That is also going to have a lot of truck traffic. At least I would anticipate that there will be some.
Right.
So the traffic plan may need to be amended. The other aspect is on a Friday afternoon, the traffic will back up all the way past my house, almost to the on-ramps. And this also happens on Saturday afternoons when you have one of the motorcycle clubs come through town. And they come through town in the summertime quite regularly.
Mhm.
Sometimes every Saturday and Sunday, as some of us well know.
Mhm. I have, yeah, I will address traffic again, and maybe she can address some of those concerns while she's here. Yeah, so is there anybody else from the audience? Yes, please, introduce yourself.
To Carlton Drive.
Michelle, I'm sorry, what's your last name?
Tirone, Tirone.
Thank you.
I agree with a lot of what our neighbor said. My biggest concern is I live right on the road. I didn't even receive a letter to come here. I guess maybe because I'm not in a butter. We have 3 children who live on the road. I understand that they think that they address the traffic concerns. I live on the road. We hardly have much traffic except for now with Cambridgeport. My kid's bus stop is on that road. There are no sidewalks already. The bus stop is there because of the safety concerns, because there's no sidewalks on East Main Street. I park on the gravel already on cold days, and when a tractor trailer comes in that road and they turn in, they come inches within hitting my car already. There's no way to get 2 tractor trailer trucks down my road, or a tractor trailer truck and a regular vehicle. It's just simply not wide enough.
You're talking about the exit from Carlton Drive on.
The actual Carlton Drive. It's not wide enough for a tractor trailer truck and a regular vehicle. So with all due respect, I listened to you guys for 20 minutes talk about, 7 apartment buildings and the safety concern. Well, what about the concern for my children?
Thank you.
She's not on the abutters list, just so you know. It's not
Yeah, I
within
think
the
you recognize
300
that.
It's a 300-foot radius, the assessor's office does, so I just wanted to check that.
You must slip just outside of it, but anyway,
Right.
we're glad you're here and that you were able to find out about the hearing. Is there any other audience members? Yeah, sure.
Since that Cambridgeport came in,
I'm sorry, can you introduce yourself? I know.
Joe Tirone, 2 Carlton Drive. Not once did I hear her mention my house, by the way, on the street. It was just a whole industrial street. So my driveway is like a big hill that goes right down into that street. And I'm just scared one of these trucks is gonna smash into my wife or something with the kids coming down the driveway one day. And I just can't believe that she gets paid to say that that road is wide enough for 2 18-wheelers to go side by side down there.
Let's be respectful.
You put this place in, you ain't never getting to Georgetown Center on a summer day. The traffic is ridiculous when I come home from work as it is now. And for not even to mention that if you were gonna put this place in, to have a set of lights at Carlton Drive, no talk of the set of lights? No, there's no talk of the set of lights, because if you put a set of lights, then it's gonna back it up the other way. It's impossible to turn 18-wheelers in like that. And then on another note, they keep saying enclosed place. Has anybody drove down Route 1 with JRM's new enclosed place on a summer day? Well, for miles their recycling place, it smells like nasty sweet stuff. So that's gonna be going all the way across. And then on another note, why are we gonna go from, that we already have the transfer station in town, so now what's gonna happen to that land? Like, could it possibly be a little bit contaminated, so now we're gonna go bigger and put a bigger place? How about we put something like for the kids in town, or some good businesses. I mean, something down there that's good. But we need to go bigger with trash. It just doesn't make any sense to me. It's crazy. And it really is dangerous. I just cannot believe that you think that road is wide enough. Have you ever been there?
You can address the board, please. Sorry.
And there's also hundreds of piles of debris in that field where they want to build. Hundreds. It looks like giant anthills everywhere of just trucks going in and out of there over the years, dropping a pile from different jobs. And another thing is, they didn't mention that along here 95, right over here where they want to build, so it's wetlands here, there's a little creek that runs all the way along here. I just don't think it's good. I think that they would literally have to widen that street big time. There'd have to be an intersection there, a set of lights. My wife almost got killed like 5 years ago when she was taking a left into that street and got rear-ended and with my kids in the car, and the car ended up almost into the woods. Just taking a left turn because people try to pass you on the right. And it's gonna smell the whole town out. They're gonna go bigger and bigger and bigger, just like Cambridgeport. They just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Thank you very much. Sorry if I lost control and walked down the
For your
road.
comments, appreciate it.
And I'm worried about the value of my house and everything.
Point well taken. Let's talk about the street while you're here. Is there anybody else from the audience? Yeah, please, let's do that while you're here.
Hi, my name's Marie Grasso. I am not an abutter, I'm just a resident of Georgetown. But my daughter Michelle, and my son-in-law Joey, and three of my grandchildren live on that street. And it is a safety issue for me, for them. It's a hardship for her. Although she has 3 boys that, like she said, there's no sidewalk. She works a couple of days a week. During the week, either I have to leave my job to make sure that they get off the bus safely, or my husband has to go over there and make sure. For that, for me and for her, it's a hardship. They bought here, I don't know how many years ago, he's been here, 10 years, to bring their kids to a nice town, to raise their children in a nice area. She lived in Linfield for 30-something years. She wanted to raise her kids in this kind of environment. And now all of a sudden she's in a place that her hands are almost tied. You know, this is it's kind of taken over by whomever, Mello, I don't know who he's, JRM, whoever. And like she said, she didn't even get not only a letter, and I understand she's an abutter, not an abutter, but you know, had we not even heard about this, it would have just, everything would have been done. So I think that the reason I'm here is to support her and her, my son-in-law, and my grandchildren, quite frankly. And I'm also a resident of this town. Very recent, but I am. So thank you very much.
Okay, thanks for your comment. And just as an aside, we do post all of the hearings on Facebook, on the community pages, because there are people, we can't send letters to everybody, obviously.
Right.
But it is for anybody who's watching, you know, if you're tied in that manner.
I will be, thank you.
Kip Durney posts all of our hearings, and so if you see anything of interest, by all means,
I
everyone's
think they
welcome
have
to
some
show.
valid concerns, all of
Yeah.
these people.
And also, you know, for those who have been watching, they've been before this board for more than a year, I think,
Yes.
on some other modifications they wanted to make, and this board has had some very serious, you know, concerns about a lot of the same things that you guys are talking about, so.
Well, and not.
I just wanna let you know,
No, I
this isn't a
appreciate it.
one night, come in and rubber stamp it through. This is obviously something
I
that
understand.
has been going on for a while, and there's gonna be a lot more diligence done in the matter as well.
It
But
took
we do
me-
appreciate your comments. Is there anybody else from the audience who's here that would like to comment? Don, you're quiet tonight, I'm gonna point you out over there in the corner. Okay, sorry, I don't mean to. Then, with that, I think I would like to circle back to traffic, because, you know, your consultant is here, and there's been some concerns, and I've got them as well. So why don't we start with Carlton Drive a little bit, because it is, what I noticed right away, first of all, and I've been out there a number of times, is that the angle of approach with that street to 133 is not a 90-degree approach. It's you know, it kind of comes in at an angle. So can you talk about how trucks get in and out of there now? And the point about Cambridgeport is a good one. There is an expanding business there that's bringing in a lot more truck traffic. Was all that considered? Is the intersection there something you took a close look at? Can you talk about the whole thing in general and just see,
Sure.
so we have a little bit more understanding what's going on?
Yeah, so I didn't hit on it a lot, but I did mention that there was the marijuana facility that's looking to expand into that area. So that was actually included in the traffic numbers. But to your point about Carlton Drive, so we did also take a look at the geometry of the intersection to show kind of how trucks can get in and out. And so you can see kind of, here's Carlton Drive coming up and then Route 133 here. And this is showing you kind of the worst case, the largest vehicle that would be coming in, which is a WB65 tractor trailer truck. And this is showing kind of the path of the vehicle as it sweeps in. So this vehicle does need the majority of the roadway to actually make that turn and sweep into the site or down onto Carlton Drive as they're turning in. So they sort of have two options of turning in. One option is that they can stay in their lane as they're on Route 133, but they need to take up a large portion of Carlton Drive as they're turning in. The other option is if there's no oncoming traffic in the opposite direction, they can sweep out and make a wide turn using Route 133 so that they're not taking up as much space onto
Can I ask you a
onto
quick
Carlton
question?
Drive.
When we're talking about tractor trailers, that is specifically to remove the trash that's been brought in, because
Correct.
everything going in is, the biggest is a large, a normal dump truck, not
Correct.
a dump truck, but
A roll-off
tractor
truck.
roll-off.
Correct.
Correct, and there's about 20 of these in a day that would be coming in and out of the site. And these would be coming in largely in those off-peak times when there's not a lot of residential traffic that's coming in and out for the facility. Because obviously you want to load the material and get these vehicles out when the site's not in operation. So that's, as you heard, the hours of operation extend outside the hours of receipt of materials, and some of that is to get these trucks in and out. So this is kind of the reverse that's being shown here. So this is that same WB65 vehicle, that large truck that's taking materials off-site, that's coming up and exiting, taking a left-hand turn out onto Route 133. And just to kind of show the reverse of what would happen if a vehicle is coming into the site at the same time, this is a single unit truck, so this would be like your dump truck that's coming in at the same time. So you can see that those two vehicles can safely pass each other. One of those vehicles could be coming into the site while a vehicle is coming out. And then, just for comparison purposes, we just also showed it with a passenger vehicle, which would be like an SUV or a pickup truck that would be coming into the site and making that turn as well, coming in here with the truck that would be coming out. And that's obviously the largest truck that would be coming out of the facility as well. So it does show that there is plenty of room for the trucks that are coming in and out, or that are coming out of the facility to accommodate vehicles that are coming in at the same time. For one of those large trucks that's coming in, though, they wouldn't be able to make that move in when a vehicle is coming out at the same time. So they would have to wait until there's a gap in the traffic to turn in.
But you've got, I think you noted a 72-second delay at that intersection during a peak hour of somebody waiting to get out to begin with. So you're gonna have a queue there. At what point is there room for a truck to get in during that peak hour? You know, you're gonna
Like
have,
what time
you're gonna
of
have cars
day?
queued to get out. So a trailer truck's trying to get in, what happens? How does
Yeah,
that-
so
how
you
does
may
that
have
work? It
trucks
doesn't
that are
make sense.
coming in, for example, in the morning, so that they can be sitting there loading throughout the day while the materials are being dropped off. You may have trucks that come in after the close down of the receipt of materials that are coming into the facility as well. One thing to note is that, that level of service F that we talked about with the 6 vehicle queue that was occurring, that's on a Saturday midday. So on a Saturday, based on the amount of materials that are needed, you would only need 3 trucks on a Saturday to take that material off-site. But Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, your intent is to hold a lot of that material and process it.
The tractor trailers would not come in on Saturday while we're open.
Right.
Absolutely not.
They come in Monday.
I'd have them come in right after close to get, that way we're not keeping as much material in the building, which also.
Saturday after closing.
Correct. So we close at noon, we're gonna operate until 3-ish. That way we can get a few tractor trailers out. There's no traffic whatsoever, aside from those tractor trailers.
Where do they go? They all go somewhere on 95? I mean,
For the most part, yes.
depends on what material they're hauling out.
Yes. The majority goes north on 95,
So
and
they're
some of it
all
goes
coming
south
out
on
turning-
95.
They're coming in, turning right, they're going out, turning left.
Correct.
Back to the highway, not coming through Georgetown.
For the majority, yes.
For the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Sure,
Can I ask
sure.
Can I just ask how they're going to get around the school bus that drops my children off right here? This is my driveway. This is where the school bus is. No sidewalks, no sidewalks. 2 different schools, 4 different stops a day. Bus stop. How are the tractor trailer trucks getting around my children?
Well, so first of all,
Because this is where I sit. I'll just show you where I sit in the day when it's cold out. Way over here on the side of the road. This is where the truck comes and almost hits me daily. Just want to point that out.
So to answer that
Extremely
question,
dangerous.
the trucks wouldn't be allowed to go around a bus that stopped there. It's against the law
They go like that.
to pass a stopped bus. So they would have to stop and wait until the bus came out before they could go. By law, anyway, but
Obviously not
physically they
allowed.
wouldn't be
Be
able.
respectful, okay, please. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say physically, they wouldn't be able to make that turn, well, when a bus was stopped there, but by law, they're also not allowed to.
And the width of Carlton Drive overall, I think I heard you address, the width, it is adequate for these large vehicles coming in and out simultaneously, or were you talking
It
about?
is, yeah, so in
the
this
driveway
area,
that
the
you're-
road's about 30 feet wide, and it widens out significantly here. I'm sure likely it was designed that way to accommodate the trucks coming in and out, especially when you see that the larger trucks do take up the majority of the roadway, but also because of the skewed angle of the approach.
Is there a way, have you looked at different ways to do something different with that entrance to make it more user-friendly to trucks?
We have not yet looked at, the geometry here, and that's something that would typically be considered at the site plan approval, process, looking at off-site roadway mitigation and things like that.
I think it's a good idea to look at that, cause if there's a way you can take off that point and make it more of, you know what I
More of a-
mean?
yeah,
Yes,
more of
thank you,
like
more of
that.
a right angle, kind of to get in there. Because that's not good, no matter what, I feel like, and I appreciate her comment, but still, that's not an appropriate traffic pattern, I don't think, for for something that we're trying to do in this day and age. So I would like that to be addressed at some point. And I know it's probably not like I said, it's site plan, but I think it should be something that you guys consider.
Is that state land? Who owns that land, George? You know, the corner?
33 is the state.
No, but the property
This
between.
property right here.
Just like if you took that
that's
corner
town
off.
open
I'm not
space.
sure who owns that.
Sorry, Nancy?
I think it's town open space, but I'll have to look into that.
It's all wetlands, if you really wanna cut that off.
I just didn't know if it was privately owned or if
I
it
have
was.
my map.
We'll look into that.
I mean, you started to do a similar thing with the old site as to how to
Mhm.
kind of handle this.
Mhm.
It's obviously something that's a concern.
We
Of
have a
course,
wide
that's not your
layout there.
driveway, but it's-
Right. We have a wide
The
layout.
overlay of that
So, we'll look at
Do you
that.
have the abutters list that calls out that piece of property?
Huh?
I think it's town.
I was trying to see which piece, I don't know if that shows that piece.
Yeah.
Is it green?
It's green.
And it's conservation
It's
land.
conservation. So, I mean,
Our,
Well, hey.
our state farm.
needs to be.
And where that is, where that lot line is for the green open space and where the pavement is, maybe two different places.
Right.
So let us look into that
Right, and it might be,
see.
but I mean, I know that corner well, and I agree, it's not, it's just, you build to today's standards when you're building something new, so I think it needs to be addressed.
Well, look at it.
Anybody else at this point?
I agree with that one. I don't think that, the truck driver should have to wait to break the law, so he can make the turn.
Well, and it's not safe for any reason, I mean, people come flying off that highway.
Jason, can you talk about, you got a volume here, that you're looking for. You can get more than that maybe later, but, as far as the tonnage that is brought in or projected to come in and out with residential traffic versus, roll-offs and other types of vehicles, how much tonnage do you get from residential traffic? You got people dropping bags off at whatever it is,
So-
$5 a bag or whatever you charge.
On a Saturday and Sunday, it's primarily all residential with a few small contractors. And we average right around 40 to 45 ton.
Of residential. Yeah, okay.
Not strictly
right.
residential trash, but homeowners. Homeowners utilizing it, whether it be they're doing a small construction job, they're bringing bulky material, things like that.
And how much of that is, I guess, I'm just wondering how many people are sort of tipping the scale versus like dropping the bags off, and, it seems to me there's an awful lot
By
of
traffic count?
Yeah, I mean,
On a weekend,
you have residents on, I'm just kind of looking, going back to because the traffic studies here, so if you look at residents in and out, that's mostly people dropping off bags and recycling,
Correct.
I assume?
Correct.
Is that right? And that would be 45 to 50 tons on a Saturday, which would be the peak.
that's including going over the scale,
Yeah,
because a
okay.
lot of the homeowners are going over the scale as well. If they have anything more than just a bag,
Sure.
most likely they're going over the scale.
Pickup truck and what
Right,
have you. Okay.
right.
And then during the week, it's probably proportionally less tonnage.
There's nowhere near as many homeowners that come in during the week.
Yeah, I mean, you've
It's more
got.
contractors.
Well, the number of vehicles are, but the tonnage, I think, is substantially less. You've got 200 vehicles during the week coming in and out, 400 vehicle trips of residential.
The vehicles coming in during the week, though, are generally carrying more material. It'd be more dump trucks, small contractors with a six-wheeler dump truck versus the homeowner with a pickup truck that's cleaning out his garage on the weekend.
Got it, okay. Fair enough. It's getting a little late.
Yeah, we've got about 10 minutes left before she has to change the DVD. We're gonna
Right,
have to
right.
take-
Yeah.
So I think at this point, it's almost 10:30. We obviously need to continue. Is there anything else that the board wants to review at this point tonight before we noodle on some of this and revisit again in a month? Any questions
I
now?
agree with Gina just briefly that that intersection's awkward. And if there's any way we can revisit that with that town property in one way or another, it's possible to slide that intersection towards 95 a little bit and give them a little bit of a buffer or something. Like, there could be some imaginative things going on there that would give them a sense of protecting their sense of their residents versus the commercial, because obviously this is all, in my opinion, it seems like a viable place to put the dump, but also what's happening with the other businesses on that street, it's getting significantly more busy for these guys, and they just probably didn't see that coming. Granted, it's all zoned that way. Well, I understand that, but that's a little awkward little situation where, like, I don't know. So I just think that intersection could be
Yeah.
enhanced in a way that would help everybody. So
We'll look at it.
without,
Mhm.
massive redesign. I'm
Right,
not even
and-
sure what the town will allow us to do. If that is truly their property, which you think it might be,
Yes.
might be kind of nice to,
And if it's a wetland,
Tweak
then I
that.
don't know, but, I feel like if there's gotta be some way you can make it more user-friendly.
Yeah,
Definitely take a look at it.
seems like, it's awkward the way it is.
The town shares responsibility in this, though.
Sure.
The
I mean, the
highway
town should allow
department,
it.
the town should be, this can't all fall on one business, especially when we've looked at other businesses in their discrete request. I just,
Well, we've zoned it to be commercial, so it should be accessible commercially.
and that's the
right now-
town's
Right, of course.
responsibility.
Why don't we,
Yeah,
why don't
and
we
right now it's
table,
not, though.
table us till next time? 'cause we
Yes.
get-
What? You don't wanna?
No, no, I don't
we
mean,
don't
I don't
wanna-
mean
so
table
we're-
it
I'll
permanently.
reiterate that
No,
was.
that's right. I mean, we can go on, like, we could get into a discussion
gonna
that
get
could go on
grouchy
for a while, so. But save that thought. I'm also kind of concerned about the amount of vehicles, not just the trucks, but when you get queues in there, it really, one car can bottle up a lot of trucks too, so I'm trying to wrap my mind around how.
Are you
it's
talking
gonna work.
on-site or off-site?
Into the site and out
Into
of
the
the
site.
site. Yeah, no, I think
In
the
and
the
out.
layout itself, I mean,
Yeah.
that's obviously handled a different way, but into and
Okay.
through Carlton Drive,
Okay.
particularly as you get on 133, you know, it's not just a truck being able to make a turn,
Mhm.
it's the amount of overall increase in that area that it's just hard to swallow in one, you know, without thinking a little bit more about it here. It just seems like a lot. So, again, something that we want to talk about
Right.
next time. So, if you guys have anything to add at this point, do you want to make one other quick comment?
If you don't
And then we're
mind,
gonna move
just
on,
one
okay?
quick comment. I wanna go
That's
home.
fine, and you're welcome to come back next time, and I'm sure we'll be able to address it then.
Just as a resident, either dropping trash off or recycling or whatever it may be, not that the whole concern of my family that lives there, but to drive for every one of us that have to drive down that road. As we're leaving to go back out onto Main Street, when you have these trucks, 10-wheelers, 4-wheelers, whatever they may be, coming in on your right, you can't view getting out. You can't even see if you can get out. So you talk about a 70-second delay or any of that, you're risking your life, not just me and my children and every one of us that are gonna go down and use that site. You cannot get out and take a right there or a left when you have a truck, a 4-wheeler, 10-wheeler, dump truck, or whatever you may want, that's gonna be entering in there. It is blocking your view. There's no, it's not just a bus stop because they have a law, you know, when you put your flashing lights on. It's all of us. It's every one of us, not just my grandchildren and my family. Everyone, for every person that's gonna use that road to get down there. That's all.
Okay, thank you,
Thank you.
appreciate it. And, you know, a lot of this, again, gets back to planning, and they're gonna review all this stuff, but at the
Right.
point it comes to them, you know, the use will either be allowed or it won't, and the volume will be what it'll be, and they may or may not have the opportunity to sort of mitigate that, so it's, let's be fair, the big thing here is what happens to the town overall and in this immediate district as a result of this use. And you can't avoid the fact that this is gonna create some significant traffic. Now, you know, to be discussed later, but
Yeah.
how do we address this?
Right.
How do we do the best you can? And what's the real, you know, they're gonna hire, you know, an expert to kind of take a look at all this for them, and technical expert, we can go down that road, but I think we'd like to see that you've done a little bit more analysis on, particularly on this intersection.
Yeah, we'll certainly
It's a-
look.
It's a problem.
We hear you, and that's what this process is all about, that we get all this information out. So we hear what you're concerned about, and we'll look at that. We'll also look, if we really want to get a handle on what the true numbers are, as Rebecca said, we didn't take any credit for the traffic that's already in this corridor for the transfer station, that's down the street. So when we look at the numbers and we say, oh, we're generating a lot of traffic, honestly, for a commercial use, we're not generating a lot of traffic, I don't think, particularly on the weekends, for other uses that could be allowed in this zoning district. However, we also haven't taken any credit for the trips that are already in this corridor for the transfer station that's there. And I want to present that information to you too, because the actual net increase is not as great as the numbers as we presented tonight, because we wanted to give you the absolute conservative view. And that's how we wanted to present it to you, so you get basically the
fair.
worst case scenario. But I want to look at that. We're going to look, and we will bring some graphics with us, because there was a question as to the width of Carlton Drive and who can pass and who can't. We'll demonstrate that to you. We'll look at the intersection. We'll look at what possible mitigation can be done there, either by us or by the town or by a partnership, because this isn't an us issue if we've got commercial uses on Carlton Drive that are also bringing in tractor trailer
Right,
trucks.
exactly.
They've got the
100%.
same thing going on. And this is a public way, and 133 is a public way. We're not talking about any private ways here. So we'll look at that.
Okay, very good.
And anything else you want us to look at in the coming weeks? All right, good.
Good for right now. Do I hear a motion to continue this hearing until Tuesday,
So
May
moved.
7th? Hang on, it's on or after 7:30.
All in
Gina,
favor?
okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we'll see you,
Motion to
Thank you very
May
much.
7th. Motion to adjourn.
Thank you
We
all for your
appreciate
time.
your
Okay, thanks.
time.
Motion to adjourn?
I'd like to make, yeah.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.